Hey, what's up, Gibbs? It's good. It's good. Just getting my get my shit set up here. Gotta get it going on. Over here talking shit on my channel. You know how it is, man. I gotta really talk all the shit. I gotta talk it early too. So
The bullshit here. What's up, Gibbs? How you doing, man?
That's so. We're learning things today. Just pull this back up. Okay. There's time. And all right, yeah, let's just kick this off and we'll get going. Welcome to another edition of Give Me a Break. We're talking about Somali fraud. Is what's happening in Minnesota, and we're going to talk about all sorts of things related to that. There's a lot of you here I know it's going to get contentious. So if I ask y'all to stop talking, just stop talking. It's probably housekeeping mainly, or to let somebody else go. So we'll just try to keep it organized as much as we can. We'll go from there. All right, we'll start with Tyler. What are your thoughts on Somali fraud? What's going on with it? And also give us your intro, who you are, where you're at, and all that good jazz. You're muted.
You're muted.
Average debate enjoyer.
Yeah.
Pro streamer right there. Pro streamer.
Average debate enjoyer. I'm right fucking here. That's where you can find me, bitch. Come at me. Everything I say is correct moving forward. If you disagree with me, sorry about being wrong. And really, this is a big deal because it's bad, obviously, but the attacks on wolves are unproven. Democrats love to pump money into NGOs and things like that. Republicans love to blow up when Democrats fuck up. There was just as much COVID malfeasance in Ohio, so kind of the centrist here to be enlightened and smarter than everybody else. That's my niche.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Grid.
I'm not sure that we can all fit in here with his ego, but we'll try. Yeah, look. Whether or not Walls himself is involved, it's obvious that there was embezzlement, malfeasance, whatever you want to call it, in all of these various endeavors highlight or around the Somali and other groups that were brought into the country as refugees seeking asylum, which most of them, hint, have not actually filed for asylum, and it's been over a year. It's been like 3 years, 5 years, in some cases, which makes them here illegally. That's just what the law says. It's not my opinion. At any rate, over $1 billion in taxpayer dollars has been misdirected, embezzled, whatever you want to call it. I think that's really bad. And I honestly don't think the cousin fuckers will ever actually fit into American society, and I don't know why Democrats want them here. And with that, I'm going to move on. I'm going to let everybody else speak.
I don't know if he's talking about Somalia or Alabama, but we'll find out, I'm sure. Castle, go ahead.
They don't fuck cousins in Alabama anymore. They gave that up in the 1800s.
Did they? Oh, okay. Castle.
Cool. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me again, Gibbs. So yeah, I think the discussion around the whole fraud case, I came into it assuming that fraud is actually happening in Minnesota, whether that's Tim Walz's fault or not, or he's up to this is a separate question, which I just don't think we have enough facts yet in this case to really make a judgment call on that. So I'm interested to just really see what the discussion evolves into later today about it. I think that it's definitely a serious problem, and people have been indicted over it and will be criminally charged for it, which is a good thing. But whether or not that's the state's problem and the state government's problem in this wrongdoing is kind of up for debate. So hopefully we can kind of get to a somewhat reasonable conclusion from this, but I'm not hopeful. I'm not hopeful about it. So we'll see.
Has anybody ever told you kind of look like a young Jim Cornette? You know who Jim Cornette is?
No, is that a good thing or bad thing?
Yeah, somebody said that in my chat, and I was like, I've been trying to figure out why you look familiar for months now, and now it's
You got to get a tennis racket.
Yeah.
That's what you need. Yeah,
I have one. I can get it right now.
There you
I can
go.
use that as a
Yeah.
prop.
Don't hit anyone with it.
In the
though. We're
sweatband. They get
Yeah.
the sweatband.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, Liberal Clark, what you got for us?
Yeah, so I did research on the feeding our children fraud case. I hope it's the same one that everyone else here is talking about because when I hear the other side, the MAGA people in this panel and like the MAGA people in my life talking about it, I have no fucking idea where they're getting the shit that they are saying from. So I'm really looking forward to like seeing the evidence that like Tim Walz was a part of this, and from what I understand, most of these people weren't even migrants; like they're American citizens. They may have immigrated here back in the 90s. So that's what I came up with when I did research. So unless we were like talking about two different things, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the other side has to say.
All right. Okay, fantastic. Mr. Coder.
Yeah, I'm Ryan, Radical Coder. Pleased to be here. Happy to be reunited with my close friend Rob Noor. As it turns out, I mean, Liberal Cluck and Tyler, Castle, I think as well, all seem to be right on the money. There was fraud. The people who did the fraud are being charged. There are tons of indictments. There's been several convictions. Fraud is bad. I'm not gonna defend anyone doing fraud, but I mean, there's no evidence that they mentioned a lot. There's a lot of rhetoric around Tim Waltz, Ilhan Omar. There's just no reason to believe these people were involved. There's going to be a lot of speculation about that tonight, and so I guess the evidence will be revealed by our friends here on the panel. But I'm suspect of that. What you will hear also from people like Grid, obviously, is a kind of collective punishment, indicting all Somalis and calling them cousin fuckers, and also accusing all these people of being asylees. I have no. I'm not. Excuse me, Grid. I'm doing my opening statement. I'm not aware of any evidence, or I'm not even aware of a breakdown of how many of these people were asylees. I think, like Castle mentioned, or Cluck mentioned, I think a lot of these people are probably immigrants. Most of them were Somalian. Again, that doesn't mean anything about how we handle other people who are Somali. We don't do collective punishment. That's kind of cringe. So yeah, I'm just interested to see what evidence is provided that anyone who hasn't been indicted is involved, and especially with this Justice Department, which is obviously very trigger happy with indictments. We'll see.
All right, Mr. Noor.
Thank you. Rob Noor. Show is Normal America with Rob Noor. Doing a 24-hour live stream tomorrow. So if anyone wants to join, we'll be taking call-ins. Anyone wants to go, even people like Ryan will be welcome to call in for tomorrow.
Hey.
Yeah, this both Ryans. Yeah. This story, obviously we can get into the nuts and bolts. It's not just the Feeding Our Future. There were a couple other groups that are alleged to use fraud as well. The gist of it is this: there's government money that was given. These organizations set up sort of fake things that they were doing to feed families, to people that were diagnosed with disabilities, autism, and things like that. And it turns out that a lot of this was just fake or straight up fraudulent. I believe there's been 72 people indicted. All but 2 of them are Somali in ancestry. And so that's the nuts and bolts if you're watching and you're wondering what we're talking about. We'll get into specifics about who is responsible, whether or not they're responsible in just a culpable way, in a legal way, what the differences of those will be. I think to give a brief summary right now, I have not personally seen evidence that would be worth indicting Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, or another person that hasn't been mentioned that it seems very shady is Keith Ellison, former head of the DNC, who was the attorney general there, who's on audio actually working with a lot of these people that would later be indicted, talking about how the organizations there in Minnesota were too aggressively going after Somalians in circa 2020. So a lot of questions to be asked by these people. I think that at least there needs to be a criminal look into this. There needs to be an investigation into whether or not the Walz administration and prominent Democrats there either collaborated, because we know that they were involved in getting money in the form of donations, etc., or that they were the people that whistleblowers have came out and said about Walz, for example, that there were things that they wanted to look into, and basically Tim Walz rebuked them. So I think those things are worth looking into. What I will say is, without being too crude, although I don't mind it at all, I enjoy Grid's crudeness, if I'm quite honest. I think what we see here is 2 things. One, anytime we have mass government spending and these huge policies, they're going to be rife with fraud. I almost look at the Somalians in this case and say I sympathize with them in this case. They're probably shocked that anyone would ever be indicted for any of this. They're like, how the hell's Nancy Pelosi get away with this shit, but we don't? Maybe a little racism on the part of the Democrats throwing the Somalians under the bus, while the traditional white elitist Democrats are allowed to get away with fraud of these sorts all the time. I don't know. The second thing is, it's just fundamentally true that we need to stop importing people from cultures that don't jive with us. And this story helps prove that we have an entire community and remake what Minnesota looked like in a way that's very detrimental to our country. And right out of the gate, we could see that one of the things we see in addition to the cultural changes is mass abuse of our generous systems. So stop importing these people, send them back, And whatever we do, stop with these expansive programs that could be taken advantage of without the incredible ability to audit every dollar that's sent out. I'm tired of the American taxpayer and the blue collar worker, people of all colors and ethnicities being taken advantage of.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Malawi.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan Mullally. I run a little show called Natural Law, and of course, am the other half of the hit show Law and Order twice a month. So check that out sometime. Also, the good Ryan, the evil Ryan's made an appearance, but you can't trust him. In any event, I think this story is exactly what it looks like, and exactly what people have been saying for the longest time, which is that when you create these government programs, they fund NGOs. The NGOs become essentially untraceable slush funds. And then, surprise, surprise, we find out that the untraceable funds are being misused. This system was rife for abuse. Everybody knew the COVID funds were rife for abuse, but this particular abuse is shocking because of its scale. $1 billion is a lot. Because some of the money may be funding terrorist organizations. That's not exactly a good look. And I agree with Rob. I don't think that I've seen any evidence that would lead to a criminal indictment for Walz or any senior Democrats in the state in that regard. But I don't like this weird reflexive thing we sometimes do now, where we say accountability equals criminal prosecution. Accountability should mean what accountability normally means. You lose the next election because you did a bad job. This is a guy who could have been the vice president of the country, and it turns out he's not too great at running his state. It looks like, and we'll see what the evidence shows over time, but it looks like he made the misguided, perhaps overly empathetic decision that he wasn't going to investigate how this money was being spent because it was during the pandemic years, and he felt like it could, rub people the wrong way or be bad optically or run the risk of taking money away from someone who needed it. And because there was not adequate oversight, there was a massive fraud. And the buck stops with you. You're the governor. I think that's more than enough reason to lose an election, and we don't need to charge him criminally for him to be accountable.
All right, thank you so much. All right, before we get into this, let's try to let people finish before we go. I feel like that's always good. And then here, I guess we'll start with this question. Seems to be there be a little bit of contention. Is there any actual fraud happening? What evidence is there of fraud?
Yes.
All right.
Let me finish on somebody's Facebook.
All right.
I don't think anybody here is denying the fraud happened.
All right. So what evidence is there? Tyler, you seem to be pretty excited about it. Go ahead. Why don't you start us with that?
As the walking, talking, extremely boring version of Wikipedia, yes, there has been a bunch of fraud going on since 2019. We have multiple allegations of whistleblowers inside of the Walz administration and the state government saying that they were warning about these red flags as early as 2019. Walz was shutting them down, working with these groups, and also the House Oversight Committee verified that he received funding right after the grants were given to one of the major groups that was doing this fraud as well. So there are reasonable ties to assume something's going on. Plus, we all see, with the Inflation Reduction Act and how Stacey Abrams' brand new super PAC got $20 billion basically to pay off out of work Democrat staffers, that this is a tactic that they like to do. Give out some money, get a little bit back. So I think, reasonable to speculate there is something greater to look at here. We just don't have it yet.
My question to you
just to make this easy, there's been 50 plus convictions. So it's not like this is like is there fraud scenario. There's been many people who are in jail right now because of the fraud. So there's no question there was a ton of fraud.
Well, they're like 72.
Yeah, I agree. And also the investigations and the indictments and all this stuff has been going on since 2021. This was when they really started investigating all this stuff. 2020, excuse me. Yeah. So it's
that's when the DOE starting to tightening its regulations around the.
So I guess the question is how widespread it is, I guess. And then here's the second thing. So what should be done? There seems to be some consistency. I've even heard denaturalizing people. How far should we go with getting rid of this problem?
Hold on. I want to go back to something that Tyler said. Can we do
sure,
that real
go
quick?
ahead. But think of that answer for another thing
Tyler,
as well.
So you said that there's been multiple allegations of Tim Walz just ignoring, and I've heard you didn't say this, but I've heard that he was punishing people for whistleblowing. Is that something you agree with? Is that something that you've heard too?
We don't have the facts yet. That's what's being alleged right now, yeah.
Okay, and besides that one Twitter account, do you know of anyone else that has alleged that?
The oversight committee in the House has also alleged this as well.
Oh, the federal house? What were they basing that off of? Do you know?
Oh, it looks like they cited taped conversations where Waltz allegedly pledged to assist feeding our future amid discussions of campaign donations from Somali leaders.
Oh,
But that's
so he
not,
just
but, that,
agreed.
but that's different
pro
than
quo.
like punishing whistleblowers and ignoring allegations.
Yeah, that's very different.
That's
That's
just
just
him
supporting a program.
supporting. That's just him supporting feeding our future, and this could be at a time where
Okay,
he-
that
That's
specifically
a quid pro quo.
that specifically came from the text. Yeah,
No,
we
it's
don't have validation that the texts are true yet. These are whistleblowers that they're being investigated right now. So,
Well, and to be clear, the House is opening an investigation. They didn't conclude their investigation, right? So
Cluck,
I think we're all being pretty measured. We're saying like we don't know for sure what Tim Walz did or didn't do. At
Okay.
present, there is not evidence worthy of an indictment. That could, of course, change because this is getting a lot of attention and new facts could come out in the future. But I don't think. Hopefully, that's not controversial.
I do appreciate your innocent until proven guilty stance, but I feel like that you would say Trump was guilty of something on January 6th, despite the fact that he hasn't been charged or convicted of anything.
Well, he was charged. He was indicted. The federal government did indict Trump for January 6th. But
what was that? Where was that indictment for January?
But anyway, why are we doing whataboutism already? We're supposed to be ones whataboutism.
Because you're making shit up.
Well, no, I'm not making shit. I'm not making shit up. I asked a question. That's the only thing.
It's an impeachment. I'm impeaching your credibility like a defense attorney would do to a witness.
Because you literally just said that Trump was indicted for January 6th, and he's never been.
He was indicted for the elector scheme. Yes.
Yes,
for defrauding the American people. That is what his indictment was for.
No conviction, baby.
All right. Pause. Let's go to Rob. Get us off January 6th, for the love of God.
So
go ahead.
Just a little more clarity. First, I second what Ryan said in his opening statement. Not everything that is bad rises to the level of criminality. There could be things that are bad enough that we say we don't want you anywhere near that. For example, you could just be grossly incompetent and allow mass embezzlement, and that's still worthy of impugning you and worthy of investigating, particularly when some of the people that were criminal were donating to you, and there are allegations from whistleblowers saying, look, we warned this guy. To be clear, though, there's not evidence enough to indict right now. And in fact, unless there's been an update on this, according to the official House Oversight Committee's website, Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, they've requested testimony and a bunch of documents from them, and they have until December 17th to respond. So this is literally just the opening stages of investigating. And so obviously at the beginning of an investigation, you're very likely to not have evidence to rise to the level of conviction, but there's certainly a lot of smoke here. And as commentators, I think Tyler makes a good point that, and even me, I would be willing to criticize Trump or Republicans if it looks like there's smoke to say, look, I can't prove criminality, but my goodness, this looks really bad. This warrants an investigation. And that's the point where I think most of us on the right are on this panel right now. It looks really bad with Tim Walz. Will it ever rise to the level of criminality? We'll see. But this certainly happened under his watch. There were warning signs available, and Tim Walz did nothing, and in fact benefited from the very groups that were engaged in fraud.
It's not true that Tim Walz did nothing, though.
What did he do?
Not true.
What did he do?
I'm sorry, what?
He helped get
one
the
view
FBI
at a
involved in
time.
this.
Yeah, let's go to Coda. Go ahead.
Tim Walz helped get the FBI on top of all this. So I mean, say he did nothing. Why would he be cooperating? Yes, he did. Why would he be cooperating with the FBI if he was involved? That would be a very silly thing to do.
Where do you find that Tim Walz put the FBI on anything?
Fred, when did the FBI start their investigation?
There's nothing wrong, and that's why they're right now looking at him. That's why his records are being reviewed, because he didn't say to the FBI, hey, go look at this. He said, no, there's nothing going on here. You just made that shit up. Again, stop making shit up.
No.
He's also making shit up. I'm not making shit up, but you are right now when you say that he said there's nothing going on here. I'm not aware of any quote like that regarding this. But when it did start to come out that there was stuff going on, or when it started to look like there was really smoke there, Tim Walz cooperated with the FBI and helped get these people, or get the FBI involved specifically.
It wasn't just
Not
cooperating
just
with the
corporate, like he was giving them information, right?
Yeah, hold on. So I got a timeline. I was trying to find. You used to have like a message thing in these video chat.
All right,
where
let me.
could
I
post
got a
things, right?
You can
timeline for
put
you.
you
July
can post it in the group chat.
2019, whistleblowers raise alarms, but election is delayed due to concerns over political backlash. Okay,
So
I got another one for you. The Feeding Our Future scheme begins siphoning funds with initial theft, estimate 250 million for meals. Walls does nothing. Walls literally sits there and says, "This is nothing. Don't look at
December
this. It's
2020,
fine."
December
At
2020,
least don't
Department
look
of
at this.
December 2020, Department of Education was refusing renewals to Feeding Our Future. In March 2021, they stopped funding 21 other nonprofits working with Feeding Our Future. State judge forced the department to resume funding in April 2021. So they had already stopped the funding to these people as early as 2020. He was according to you first reported in 2019. I'm sure they're not going to just stop funding to a somebody that they think is helping a bunch of poor people immediately. I can post it. I just need to know where to post it at.
Just post it in the group.
Literally,
the group chat.
Walls and Omar's staff both ignored the warnings to dodge racism smears. Literally.
Well, no, that's not true. What happened was there was a lawsuit filed, a discrimination lawsuit, which did impede the process of the investigation. But once that was settled, everything continued.
That's
So I guess
that's not.
I guess my question is like, if the
Sounds like-
governor,
I'm sorry you didn't include
if
that
the
in your
buck
timeline.
doesn't stop with the governor, why not? Like, I mean, he's the person who's the boss of all the committees, all the commissioners who are handing out the money. He's the one who's in charge of the government. He's in charge of the executive branch. It's his state. Why?
Yeah, so he gets credit for them trying to fund the freeze the funding in December.
But he doesn't get blamed for the $1 billion of fraud. Like I'm not
think
even
you
talking
can
about, like,
be
criminally. I'm just
honest
saying,
and
Billions a very
as like a
inflated number.
baseline of just like common sense. You don't think that the governor of a state should be accountable for massive fraud within his state and his administration? Why not?
He's doing like all kinds of reasonable things to make sure it stops.
Like what? What did he do?
Like funding the freezing as early as December in 2020.
He did that.
Like,
Tim Walz works for
the funding.
Tim Walz personally had a hand in the Minnesota Department of Education that temporarily froze funds. He had a
okay. So if you're going to what this guy Ryan just said was that he is responsible for all the agencies that's under Tim Walz. The buck stops at Tim Walz. So he also gets credit for the things that they do. That's good. Like that's just
standard.
That's not true, right? What we would say is this specifically is that investigators under someone could do something and then fail in court because there wasn't sufficient materials given to them, support for them, that they would be able to do this. What we have is the following. One, your idea that they cooperated with the FBI, particularly that Ryan said, is laughable. Sure, once the FBI starts kicking doors and Tim Walz goes, okay, I'll be happy to help you now. That's not him being proactive in stopping fraud as it's occurring. Second, even if we take your timeline that you gave that said that in 2021 and about July that they froze funding, remember, that's only about, 6 months before the FBI would eventually kick in doors, right? And what we see is this fraud was started back as early as 2019. There were obvious warning signs. So even if I give you credit for what the Minnesota Department of Education did temporarily in, I believe, March of 2021,
they were forced to start again and by the court.
Let him finish. Yeah,
that would mean that for 2 years that the Walz administration allowed them to get away with this obvious fraud.
No, it was 1 year before they started trying to freeze the funds. And my guess would be...
Okay, so is Walz a complete fucking idiot?
Hold on, wait. Yeah, hold on. So it was 1 year before they started trying to freeze the funds. And my guess would be that you're not going to just freeze the funds to an NGO that supposedly helping feed people, which they probably were actually helping feeding people, just not as many people as they were claiming to. That was where the fraud was. My guess would be they're not just going to immediately freeze funds just because they're accused of something. My guess is that the Department of Education has to investigate, which they did, and then they found that there was suspicious stuff happening, and they tried to freeze the funds, and then a judge told them that they had to
Clark, let me ask you a question before I turn it over to Grid. This is kind of like what Ryan kind of has implied. Like, forget the criminality, but let's say, like, let me just give you an example. I want you to kind of hit me with it based on what you just said, right? So, say I get $1 million from Uncle Sam to start a soup kitchen, and I go, okay, and I use $10,000 of that dollars to open up the kitchen, and I put a storefront out there, and I keep it open for like 2 months, and I'm feeding 10 people, but I stash the rest of the money. All right, like, who should be held accountable for like my fraud? Like, at some level, y'all trusted me. Somebody's head's got to roll. Like in college football,
Yeah.
if the athletic director hires the guy and he gets bought out by the end of the season, they fire the athletic director if the buyout was too high. You know what I'm saying? So like that's kind of what we're asking. Who, like, is Tim Wiles accountable in your mind to like answer for his failure as a leader to do something about this, like, or recognize this is happening?
The person responsible would be you, and if the administration that you are working under actually knew about it, and we had proof that they knew about it, and they let you continue, then I would say it was the administration. But we don't have proof of any of this from the Walls
We
administration.
do have proof.
May I really?
Exactly.
May I really?
Let's see it.
Fine.
Go ahead,
Let's ask this question real quick. Let's assume this is true. That Tim Walz was trying his damnedest as early as 2020. He was like, "There's something suspicious. These people are doing fraud." That's your argument, and they tried to freeze the funding, but then a judge overruled them. Correct? That's your argument.
That's what happened. Yes.
Walls
Okay.
didn't freeze
Then
it.
let me finish.
Well, yeah,
If
the
that's
Department of
case-
Education
Hold
did.
on,
Let me finish.
Underwall.
Okay, if that's true, then what this is from the actual chairman on oversight committee, right? That's launching an investigation into Walz from December 3rd, 2025. This is what they say in their official communication. Quote, "This woeful oversight of remittances is concerning, especially given that since 2014, including under your leadership since 2019, oversight of remittance payments has been the purview of the state." Quote, "You were caught on tape pledging to help feeding our future fraudsters in a conversation that also included discussion of campaign donations from Somali community leaders to secure your donor base. And only days later, you and your son accepted contributions to your campaigns from individuals in this meeting. Based on these reports, the committee's concerned you were negligent in the handling of these tax dollars." Now, that tape is allegedly from 2022. If it's true that Tim Walz suspected these people of fraud, so much so that he was trying to stop funding from them but was hamstrung by the courts, why is he meeting with them, pledging to help them after this, and accepting campaign donations?
Wait, how could that be before? Wait, if he's on tape with them talking about funding Feeding Our Future, how could that be before if they were using Feeding Our Future for the fraud?
He's talking about helping out the people from these communities and from those organizations that were on tape after the initial freezing of the funds. What do you mean? The funds were
Wait,
unfrozen to them.
this tape is from after? I thought
Yeah,
the tape that Tyler referenced earlier was from before.
What are you talking?
2022.
2022 is allegedly on tape. Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I misunderstood.
Now, I haven't heard this tape. This could be bullshit. But if that's true, I'm just coming this out because as this investigation is ongoing, if the House is saying we heard this tape, they're probably eventually going to provide the transcript of some tape. And at that point, would you two be willing to say, oh, clearly, if after he suspected them of fraud, he was sitting in a meeting with them, pledging to help them after that, then clearly he's complicit. Will you go that
Well,
far?
I would say
if that evidence comes out, that you would accept that evidence that he was complicit?
I would say it depends on what's being said in the tape, first of all. But I'm open to it. I'm okay if it turns out that like Waltz or Ilhan Omar or any of these people were actually involved in this. Then like charge them, whatever. Like we'll see what happens. We'll see where the evidence falls, right? But like if the tape is just like Tim saying, hey, we're going to continue funding these or giving these funds to make sure that these children are fed, that's not a bad thing, right? And like, even if there is suspicion of fraud going on, it wouldn't mean that, oh, we're not going to release any funds for any people who are involved, who are benefiting from this program. It would just require the investigation to continue.
Tyler, go ahead.
I want to do a fact check real quickly. The funds that were frozen in 2022 of March, it was because the IRS noticed in an audit that the nonprofit status was not filed for by the group feeding kids, stealing money from kids. They did not file for a nonprofit.
Didn't stop that money.
So that was why that money was stopped by the Department of Education, is because they were no longer able to take that money. It was the IRS that actually did the investigation itself. So it came
Yeah.
from the federal government.
And just like one more just point of clarification because of things that were said earlier. The judge, at least according to the judge's statement, I haven't read the docket, but the judge in that case, after Walz lambasted him, issued a statement and explained that he did not actually order the government to resume payments. What happened was he had sanctioned the government because they failed to process the applications. And if you do any reading between the lines, what that meant is the Walz administration didn't want to shut down the program because that's bad PR. They didn't want to deny the applications because that's bad PR. So they were just pocket vetoing them. And the judge said you can't pocket veto them. You have to actually make a determination that you're not processing these for payment because of the fraud. You have to take, sack up and say, no, we're not doing this. That's what happened in the court. It wasn't like the judge was like, yes, there's fraud, but you must continue paying them. That's not what happened in court.
Also,
All right, so
hold on. So Waltz, while he personally, as far as we know, really didn't pose himself in the actual trial. However, according to the Minnesota, I want to make sure I got to make sure I get this right because I don't want the United States Department of Justice, according to their press release, four people were indicted for attempting to bribe jurors with literal bags of cash, $100,000 or more in each bag. They approached jurors to bribe them. And this is the type of thing that is going on there. That's a type of criminality that's going on there. Now, I'm not saying that Waltz himself knew about this, but it's his actions as governor that fostered this environment to where it could be abused. And now the reason that Waltz is being investigated this heavily right now is because what's coming forward is because these trials are moving forward and evidence is being introduced, what's happening now is that there are now pictures of him with these people and text messages with these various people and these various criminals committing criminal acts. And now that's why they have until the 17th to produce those text messages, those records of meetings that he claims originally never happened, that he had never met these people. And yet now he's got to turn over his calendar, both the official calendar and his private calendar, to see when he had the meeting with, if he had meetings with these people by the 17th. Now, that may come to nothing. But again,
all right, Grid. The only argument here is that Waltz is a shitty governor. That's literally all your claim is from everybody here.
Yeah,
that's it. There's no crime. Nobody has any evidence.
Well, I didn't say that.
You can say.
I
know, but it's stupid. It's a stupid. It's a stupid debate, though. It's a silly debate.
Well, hold on.
Is he criminally responsible? I'm not a judge here.
Okay, then who cares?
Is that he knew about this fraud and he allowed it to continue?
Well, let's actually expand
it. That would be the criminal act.
Let's actually expand this a little bit because one of the other people featured prominently in some of the photos with this person that's alleged fraudster is Ilhan Omar, who's got her own alleged fraud issues going on, as well as maybe immigration lies. Like, so what's going on here? What should we do about this? Did she marry her brother? Did she not marry her brother? Should we denaturalize her? Should we open up denaturalization to all these people? Grid brought up the asylum, being taken advantage. What are we thinking here with Omar specifically? Let's start with that.
Well, we can start with the brother thing, right? I mean, the brother thing's an obvious, obviously like a racist lie that's been slandering her for years. I mean, there's really no evidence except for like people pull up this old like Instagram post that isn't even really verifiable. And it's just like them like seeming to use the word uncle to refer to some kids who might not even be her kids. There's really just like nothing there. So I mean, we could maybe put that to rest.
No, I don't think that that's all there is. In fact, there's people around them that said that she was married to her first husband in a Islamic ceremony, her being Islamic. The marriage to her second husband was one that wasn't through a traditional Islamic service, which people connected to her found very odd. It didn't seem to be a big celebration like her first one. People around the situation said that her husband was openly gay. the second husband that's being alleged to be her brother, which they also found strange. And there have been people that have claimed through better data that they were actually brother and sister. I don't really give a shit about it, but I'm not willing to say that we should bury it. It's not a story that I've delved much into, nor do I give a shit that much. Obviously, if she committed fraud in that sense, fine, but it's not something I'm particularly interested in. But no, I don't think I'm prepared to just be like, can we put this to bed? There's nothing there. There's shit there. That doesn't mean it's true, but there's more than.
Well,
you're
Rob, would
leading
you
on,
support
that's
like
there.
denaturalizing someone like Omar if they found out it was fraud over the brother?
Yeah,
thing?
I would be fine with denaturalizing first generation immigrants to this country if they've committed serious crimes. I'm fine with that. With denaturalization, and that's
Mr. Malawi, you're a lawyer here. What would that? Yeah, I'll let you turn. You want to open it up in a second, but I want to get our lawyer's opinion on how like something like this would work with the denaturalization process.
I mean, I'm not an expert in denaturalization, but generally speaking, it's a pretty high bar. You get denaturalized only if you did something illegal or you lied on your forms when you were procuring your naturalization. So, like, if you did something fraudulent in the process of acquiring your citizenship, that could get you denaturalized. I think you also could get denaturalized if you did something that was like aiding and abetting a known terrorist organization.
I can answer that. I know exactly what the process
Before you
looks
do,
like.
can I ask Ryan? So you're to be clear, people are saying that she her ex-husband now I believe was openly gay. Some people are saying this. Some people are saying that there's reports that apparently are stronger than this Instagram post. These people are saying these things. That wouldn't be enough to show that she's committing fraud in her immigration paper.
Well, what about? Well, here's
you
something.
have to have a court proceeding.
Well, you mentioned
there'd have to be evidence of what she.
Well, you mentioned
Sorry,
the terrorist organization aspect, right? And there's alleged aspects to this fraud thing where maybe with the terrorist organization. But we have on record the foreign minister in Somalia saying that Ilhan Omar is not working for the United States; she's working for his people. And some statements from her saying that would that be almost grounds to denaturalize somebody?
So let me be clear. There's two different questions here. There is currently under the legal system what is grounds for denaturalization, and there's what ought to be. Should we change the law? I have no problem with the changing of law to say that first generation immigrants, which I don't even think Ilhan Omar necessarily would qualify. I'd have to look into this, but I believe she came as a child, right? She may be considered, I don't know, but here's the thing, right? If there's a crime that's heinous enough or something like that, fine. Regardless if the law allows for it or now, I'm for the denaturalization for first generation immigrants. However, that would be very difficult for even me, who wants to see mass deportations, to believe that should be the case for a second generation immigrant. The truth is we have a legal system for a reason, and we have punishments up to and including jail time that don't necessarily mean that denaturalization needs to be something that's a punishment on the table. So if someone is an immigrant, they do something shitty, am I okay with to hell with them, send it back? Yes. But if they are the child of an immigrant who was born here and right now is deemed an American citizen, no, I don't think that we could just willy-nilly say no matter what heinous of a crime they did, send them back. Throw their ass in jail? Sure. So I don't know. I hope that answers the question. And just to speak real quick, Coder's saying here, no one is again, once more, I am not suggesting that she be deported because she married her brother right now because I have 100% proof. I'm merely making the point that your dismissal of there's no evidence. There's evidence, but it certainly doesn't rise to the bar that I would accept it if I was on a jury to say that this is guilty unless there's more out there. I'm just saying that you're downplaying there.
So
I would just say that evidence is pretty much all hearsay, but go ahead, Tyler.
The denaturalization process, I'll just give you a quick rundown real fast. What happens is the holy authority cuts your hair. Then you have to walk down the streets of King's Landing butt naked while someone with a bell behind you yells shame, and they throw food at you.
Shame. Yes.
And then you
let's do that. Yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't do any research on Ilhan Omar and marrying her brother, but I would like from Tyler, you said that Walt's what did you say about something about 2022? They froze the funds because of the IRS. Could you send that to me so I can read it? And Nor, could you send me the where you got the information on the tape of Walt's saying, "I'm going to help funding our future or feeding our future"?
I know Rob's is oversight. I can send you
Mine's
that.
an
one.
oversight, so it's from the December
Yeah.
3rd, 2025
December
House
3rd.
oversight letter. I could put it up, I can, but then I got to close my window so the audience
No,
is
it's,
going to
I can find it probably. I'm
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, well, but while you're doing
no
that,
one said anything. Real quick.
Go ahead.
No one said anything in our little Discord window that they would be upset if it pops up my screen, right? Because for me to close my window, that's going to pop up and all that good shit. You guys don't mind that?
I don't care.
We didn't have any
There's pictures
spicy
of me naked smoking
conversations.
crack, actually.
Yes, I don't think that was going on. So, all right. But if you can't find that, let me know.
But let's.
I
so,
also have another site. Go ahead.
yeah. So, Grid, you brought up the you don't like the asylum system here. It seems like there's a lot of fraud going on with this group of people. What would you prescribe to this situation? Do you want to kick everybody out that's a Somalian?
Oh, I just think that if they're going to come here, they should follow the law. And what we actually these investigations are showing is that they came here as an asylum seeker, and the law is really clear that they have a 1 year to file for asylum. If they don't do that, then they're here illegally. And apparently, there's a large percentage of these Somalis who have been given extensions, which, by the way, don't legally exist. That's not in the code. But they've been given these extensions so that they have not yet actually filed for asylum.
But to be clear,
And
you're
that
referring
is-
to Somalians who are not involved in this fraud case. You're just extending to
I don't
Somalians
know.
broadly and talking about immigration.
I'm just looking at the percentage of Somalis. I mean, I don't know how many of them are involved in the fraud.
Most of the people
I
that
don't
were
even-
involved in a
About
fraud.
70 something.
Most of the people that were involved in a fraud are American citizens. Also, fun fact: the ringleader, the founder of Feeding Our Future, is a white American woman, and that never gets mentioned for some reason.
No, that's not true. In fact, they named the case after her. It's Amy Bach. I specifically said
When did it get mentioned in this?
It hasn't come up
discussion
today.
Before I did.
Well, because
when
that's not
I
part of the
said
discussion.
Because-
when I s-
Okay, go
would you
ahead,
like
go
me
ahead.
to answer?
Yes,
When I
yes.
said my opening statement that of the people convicted, all but 2 were Somalians, that would imply that 2 of them weren't Somalian.
Sure,
Right?
but nobody has mentioned that the founder, the ringleader, was
Because
a
it's
white
irrelevant to
American
the
woman.
conversation.
But yeah, of course, it's irrelevant to the conversation for people who just want to attack Somalians. But you know,
No,
that's
that's-
No,
neither
we're
here nor
talking
there.
about the
I'm
people
gonna-
who have not yet been convicted and the ones that have met with Waltz. Her name has not come up in Waltz's phone records, but all of these other names have. Therefore, her name is
All of the-
irrelevant to this conversation, other than you wanting to throw white people in there to make.
And
it
she's a
seem
Jew.
less-
Wait, but Grid, that's
Oh,
like
okay,
saying
you're the
Pablo
real racist
Escobar
liberal club.
She's Jewish.
It's like saying
Never mind.
Pablo
Yeah, yeah,
Escobar
Tyler-
isn't important because his underlings
I
were
just
the
don't
ones being
see. I
indicted. Like,
don't
come
see
on.
why the fact that these people are Somalians are even important to the conversation. But
There's
it's
2
like
reasons that there's 2 reasons. that
incredible
it's important.
exceedingly germane to the
There's
conversation.
2 reasons that it's important to the conversation. Number 1 is because it shows this insulated group that is balkanized and sort of ghettoized and came together to all be in one area. And yes, there's other problems independently with things they're doing when it comes to abusing the welfare system, taking more out than they're putting in, have massively different culture. However, the part of it that matters for this discussion is it's easy for fraud to occur in these sorts of communities because these people don't really understand the federal system that much. They sort of just understand what's going on. In fact, I was reading from an
Yeah, so-
expert at the Heritage Foundation that talked about this, how a lot of times these communities are engaged in this sort of stuff because the people that are leading those communities know that these average people aren't even going to understand how these programs go. Here, just sign this fucking paper here. It doesn't matter. They don't know what's going on anyways. They're listening to their community leaders. So the fact that these Somalian community leaders were engaged with this fraud is something that happened exclusively because they're Somalian. The other reason that this would matter is there are allegations that one of the reasons that the Walls administration and Keith Ellison and company didn't act sooner was because they were both simultaneously afraid of being called racist and that they wanted to pander to the Somalians in that state, and they were afraid that if they aggressively went after Somalian community leaders that they would lose their re-election. So for both of those reasons, the fact they're Somalian matters.
And we
It's-
can. We
just
So
can
the point one that you made,
just to clarify
Bob,
something
is
for my
that
own
there's a
sake,
lot
is
of
this
different-
is this separate from the autism thing? The autism.
So there's
corruption?
3 different organizations that were involved, I believe, and one of them was
what I thought,
involving
yeah.
autistic children. And like Rob said, I will agree with him here. Like there were people who were being victimized, right? People being taken advantage of, who had like autistic children, and these people, you know, they claimed to be helping them, and they were using their name to enrich themselves. And those people are facing charges and being convicted. So the system seems to be working as like appropriately.
These
So
are,
I
but
I just wanted to say to
I also
Rob
wanted-
that there's Yeah, there's one thing about the first point you made that I guess I don't want to say take issue with, but I think you can claim that immigrant communities, and it's not just Somalians, do this a lot. There are Hispanics who have taken, advantage of Medicaid fraud in South Texas that I've read about. Ukrainians, Russians in New York who do the same thing. They get, they commit fraud all the time. I think the reason why this whole Somalian debate is more interesting is because Trump has gone after them specifically, and you haven't heard about other communities that are more pro-Trump being talked about in this way that have committed fraud in the past before.
Which
So I
one
think
of
that's
these
where
mass? No, I'll accept this if you could tell me which mass migrant community is more pro-Trump.
Hispanics are very pro-Trump in
You think
Miami.
recent Hispanic immigrants, ones that have just came, you think they're pro-Trump?
Wait, why
For
do they have to
example,
be recent though?
Because
These
I
people
don't.
weren't recent. Wait, these people
Yeah, you
weren't
added that
recent.
after the fact.
Let me explain
Also
what I mean
true.
by recent. What I'm saying is someone that's like fourth generation Hispanic that's upset about mass illegal immigration. I don't think these are the people that are traditionally balkanizing and committing fraud. Those people that are likely
But
to
we
be
have
Hispanic.
proof
Let me
of
finish.
people in New
Uh,
York, people in South Florida, South Texas who are committing fraud. I don't know why it matters that they're fourth, second,
okay, when
18th
you
generation. Like these are communities that are committing fraud. I think we should all go after
Wait,
that.
there's another community with $1 billion of fraud and links to terrorism. Which
I'm
community is
looking
that?
here.
And hold on. So
Wait,
Those,
what? There
there's
is
a
no link to
those
pattern
links
here. You
terrorism.
are
guys are
not
ignoring
supported
the
yet, but
They
they
are
could be.
currently
hold on.
looking into
You
the
guys
links
are
to terrorism.
ignoring the
Yes.
pattern of
Right, they're looking
criminality
into it, but there's
that
no
is
like
a
actual link.
problem. They have you have just recently there and this is it's recently been decided, but it's been going on since it looks like about 2017. There's a case. I'm going to just pick one case because it's illustrative, where the Somali guy is has raped multiple people. He was let go with time served because his religious leader wrote a letter to the judge that he just didn't understand American customs and hadn't acclimated yet, and he just didn't understand that it was wrong to harm these women. And the judge released him with time served. And it's because of actions like that by our legal system favoring, which I believe goes to Rob's point of nobody wants to piss these guys off. They're pandering to them.
What's the name of the guy you're referencing?
Abdemahat Billy Muhammad, 28, was charged by complaint. And this is coming from the Office of Public Affairs, U.S. Department of Justice.
So
Was he
what you're
charged or
saying,
convicted?
And
Grid,
yeah,
Convicted.
you're
He's
saying
been
a
charged
small group of
federally now.
people, with like minds in the United States banded together for political power and got some political sway. You're telling me the system's working as it should, right?
Also, I want to go back to what Castle said here for a minute, right? When I take what it seemed that you agreed with Radical Coda there somewhat that talked about immigrant communities being taken advantage of. Can you explain how that works real quick? Either of you want to explain how that works? Like what is it uniquely about immigrant communities that allow people to take advantage of them? Give me some of the characteristics that would allow it.
Well,
one
I
thing
don't know
could,
if I said go for it, right?
yeah, I mean, one thing could be limited English, for example.
Now, do you think the people that have limited English that are Hispanic are Trump voters?
A surprising amount, probably, yeah. But I mean, I don't know
I
the
think
numbers
that
off the top of my head.
when we talk about naturalized Hispanic citizens that tended to slightly go for Trump, I think what you'll see is a lot of those people are people that are more interested in assimilating. Particularly, we're going to see that groups that are rife with taking government money and like money that's coming through these NGOs, probably these groups that are engaged in this fraud, even if they're Hispanic or any other ethnicity, probably aren't the biggest Trump supporters. Right? Because the
I
mere
mean,
fact that
you have
Trump's
any
someone that's
numbers on
trying
this,
to
or are you
shut
just riffing?
well, I think that it makes sense intuitively. One, if the
So you're
reason that
riffing.
they're being, I mean, again, we know the old game. So much of dealing with liberals is them pretending to not know things, thus making discourse impossible. Is anyone here other than Radical Coder going to reasonably disagree that if you are an NGO that's engaged in fraud, that's reliant on mass amounts of government money being sent your way for these programs, that you would be more likely en masse to support the guy who's promising to stop the funding to the NGOs? Anyone gonna
Rob,
make
your
that
excuse is
argument?
that if you are an immigrant but you like America, the fraud that you're committing is better if you hate it than if you hate America. That's like the dumbest
Where did
argument
I-
ever. There are Russians in New
where
York
did I
who have been
remotely-
I'm not
committed.
really sure that's the argument that he's making.
Where did I remotely
That's
say
like
that?
that's what he
You're
said.
making- You're
I do
making
think
the
that Rob-
argument. You're making the argument that in a case where there's been convictions, which you all part of the other side's argument on this is the investigation started under the Biden administration, correct?
Well, we
Sure.
said the investigation started with the DOE
During the
under Tim
Biden
Walz.
administration,
During-
right?
Well, I don't think any did. Maybe somebody brought up Biden.
Okay, so the point that I'm trying to make is your argument is the reason we're hyper focused on this is basically because Trump is a racist and wants to attack the Somalian community. Not that this is one of the most amounts of convictions we've had on corruption of such a grand scale. You're like,
Then
no,
let the case
there's
go
been-
through,
there's-
Rob.
let me
Just let the
finish.
Well, I
case go
just-
through.
The idea
and
Also-
why are you wait. If that's
Well-
the argument that the things I'm saying here shouldn't be said because instead I should wait for the case to go through before I say anything, why did you agree to come on this panel?
Wait, nobody's
Because I
saying
wanted to
talking
see what
about
dumb
it
shit
before the
argument you
case
came
went
up
through.
with.
What are you talking about? I didn't say
You don't
that
have a
people-
case here, Rob. There's no.
What is-
There are people who have been
Steal man-
indicted, and there's
Steal man my
evidence that.
argument. I want you to steal me in my argument that I've said that I don't have a case for it. Go ahead.
Because you already said you don't know if Tim Walz has been involved. We all just agreed about that.
What are you talking about? Like, I didn't say we don't know if Tim Walz has been involved. I said we don't know that it rises to the level of criminality. However, it's
Okay, it's not a
fair to
crime.
say-
Okay, but
Let me
that's the
fin-
whole point of the
let
case.
Let me finish, right?
Well,
We admitted that. Ryan admitted it. And now
That
you're
wasn't
saying,
actually the
so you
problem.
guys just need to be quiet until after the case. But we're specifically saying, yes, we're not accusing him of criminality until after the case. So what are you telling me to be quiet about?
Well,
Yeah,
I guess
this isn't a panel
Rob,
about
that's
whether
what
Tim
I'm
Who
Walz
told you to
is
be quiet?
charged. Like,
Wait, who told you to be quiet?
I
This is
just
like-
Said that I
It's a
should just
sideshow.
wait. That's what he just
Yeah, I didn't
said.
tell you
Let
to
me
shut
just-
up.
I mean,
let me just-
honestly,
argue that.
go
It's
ahead,
not
go
your
ahead,
pan.
Mr. Malloy. Mr. Malloy, go ahead.
Nobody
and
puts
then I'm
Rob Noir in a corner.
Hold on, Mr. Malloy, you go ahead, and then I'm going to reframe it. I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think if we cut through all the noise, and there's a lot of noise on issues like that, like this, and people say stuff, Trump says stuff, everybody's sounding off and getting their sound bites. What do we really know? We have a community in Minnesota that's grown exponentially because of the TPS program. This is since the 90s. We've been relocating people from Somalia to places like Minnesota because of the various crises that have happened in that country. Now what we've seen is a mass scale fraud, and we've seen long-term data that there's disproportionate use of welfare, SNAP, other programs within this community. And if you set aside all the noise, what was Trump's real response? He's stopping the TPS program because he doesn't think it's in the best interest of the country. This isn't like a wildly insane policy. I think this is kind
Well,
of
let me
let's
jump
point
in on this.
let's point to another
Hold on,
part
hold on,
of
Let
the
him
talk,
finish.
right?
Let him
So-
finish.
Something's not
Let him
working.
finish. Go ahead.
I thought he was done.
Okay,
Yeah, my
go ahead.
bad.
Go ahead, Ryan.
So I just want to point to another part of Trump's response to all this, which is to talk about Ilhan Omar alleging, again with as much evidence as Rob has here, alleging that she married her brother, talking about how her turban and
Why
then
do you
having his
bring that
crowd.
up?
I'm sorry, can I finish? Because Trump is bringing it up. The president of the United States is bringing it up, and that's why I'm referencing it right now. So, and that's what I'm talking about. So Trump mentioned the brother thing, talks about her wearing a turban, and talks about how she needs to be sent back, and has his whole crowd at his rally just a few days ago chanting "Send her back," which is pretty concerning.
So
That's-
okay,
I don't have a problem.
So no response to the
yeah, I got you,
Really?
Ryan. I want to
Okay.
respond to Ryan. Ryan, you're more attacking compassion-based immigration, more saying essentially without saying that merit-based immigration would be a better way to go. Compassion-based immigration is why we brought them in. It's more just left-wing versus right-wing policy preferences, and I can make that argument if we want to go that route with the panel, because at the end of the day, the things that we're saying about this group of people. There's another group of people within the United States that since the founding have received adversity. They're one of the most persecuted people in the world. And a major accusation is they have dual loyalty to another religious group. And it's the Catholics, the Papists. Benjamin Franklin did not want those filthy Papists in our country. And there was a massive movement to keep them out because of these giant monolithic arguments that we're making. I think that we need to do compassionate-based immigration, at least to some degree, because a lot of these Somalis are victims, even if they are on welfare slightly more often.
I also
And
just
again,
don't think that I just don't
Okay.
think that being Somali just makes you more prone to committing fraud. I don't see the evidence. It's just like this one
Would-
case.
would
Most
you-
of them
would
are
you-
from Somali descent.
Cluck,
Well,
would
you,
you
you
say-
don't see the
in
evidence
America
because
for-
that was you don't see the evidence because that wasn't the argument. The argument was that this fraud has shed a light on this community, and that the data from this community shows a wildly disproportionate drain on state resources, on government funds, on enrollment in welfare programs, enrollment in SNAP programs, etc. And the question that begs is it in the United States' best interest to continue programs that incentivizes the immigration of Somalis into the country going forward? President Trump's answer was no. We should stop doing that, at least in part, while we figure out what's going on and what's not working.
Right, because
It's
the
Well,
not
no,
people
that's-
like
hold on, that's-
Somalis
people
are
receiving the
inherently
welfare,
criminal.
the people
That's not
receiving the
point.
welfare
The
weren't the
point is
ones
that
committing the
this
fraud.
program
The people
doesn't seem to be
receiving the
working out
welfare
that
weren't the
well.
ones committing the fraud.
Well, hold
The
on,
people
Clark.
receiving the
Conflating
welfare weren't the
issues.
ones
Hold on.
You're
committing the fraud.
conflating issues. If I
Go ahead, Rob.
I think that was a direct response to what he said.
No, what Ryan is saying is this. There's all sorts of questions about this community, right? There is the fact that there's massive cultural differences where we have like imams with calls to prayers on the streets. The demographics have changed rapidly, right? Now these people are getting political power in the area, and they've all but taken over certain areas of Minnesota. Not only is their culture massively different, which I don't give a shit. You could call me racist. I don't want to see Islamic culture dominate places of the United States. I don't like it. I think our culture is better. So that's something that we're right to raise our eyebrows. Just like Tyler points out, it's something during the election of JFK that people said, is there a concern that you have priorities to other countries first? And we certainly see people in the Somalian community in Minnesota, including allegations of people like Ilhan Omar and others that have seemed to suggest that they heavily concerned about what's going on in Somalia as a first priority. We have no problem with lefties, and I agree with them many times, saying, wait a minute, is this person have dual loyalty if they're Jewish and they're talking about Israel and the need to benefit Israel? Lefties have no problem saying, yes, that's right, that's fair game. Same question here. So in these questions that Ryan points out, where we have that Somalia has high crime rates, there's all sorts of problems with like issues with assaults on women and things like that. There are low IQ rates that mean that people aren't capable of being productive in higher level jobs, high unemployment in Somalia, all of these things. Then we mass import these people that are so culturally different than us. And now we find out, after being called racist for years and years, that yes, our gut feeling was correct. They have balkanized.
No, I
They are
don't.
not.
That's
Let me
something I
finish.
disagree with.
Let
I
me
don't
finish.
think. I don't.
Let me
Well,
finish.
you've gone on so long about
That's
80 different
fine.
things.
That's
Like-
fine. I'll finish. Because you keep conflating issues. So we see that actually these people, unlike we were told we were racist for noticing, are using welfare far more than average Americans. On top of all of this, now we see this criminality that's occurring in the Somalian community, and people like you that I assume you hate white people and hate U.S. citizens are like,
Oh yeah,
Oh
hate
my
white
God,
people.
you're such a
Hate them
victim
so
of-
much. Fuck
we
U.S.
shouldn't talk
citizens.
about this. We
Just let
shouldn't
me make a
talk
few more
about
points.
this
Go ahead,
because
Rob.
it's racist to talk about Somalians in any way that's negative.
Okay, no. Here's the thing. Nothing you said is inherent to being Somalian. The crime that we are saying that we are saying is real, that isn't inherent to Somali. Them being Somalian doesn't make them more likely to commit those crimes. It was a white woman, American, that ring-led all of this.
Castle.
And was there anything
know how
about
to
that
make
woman
this-
being white
Cat.
that made
I
her
don't
more
know.
likely to be a ringleader?
Collective punishment. He wants to do collective punishment. Just
All
say
right,
it, Rob.
hold on.
I'm willing to shut up. Let me finish the point, Gibbs. I'm willing to shut up.
Yeah, make a few more points.
If you could tell me one time that me or Ryan or Tyler, and I don't think Grid said this either, have said being Somalian makes you more likely to commit fraud like this. Go ahead and show us.
That's definitely what you're heavily incredibly. If you didn't say it straight out, you're heavily insinuating it
We're
right
talking
now.
about welfare.
Welfare.
No, bullshit. You're making
You
shit
also
up.
just made a lot of
Hold on,
shitty
hold on.
claims
So why
about
does them
Somalia.
being Somalian matter about
Well,
this fraud
okay,
case?
hold
Why
on,
does them being
hold on.
Somalian matter at all?
Okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna rephrase it. I'm gonna go to hold on. I'm gonna go to Castle. I'm gonna go to Castle next. I think that but I do want to say I think it matters because one, it's a lot of Somalis. Two, it's all the things that Rob just said, where it's like all these different
It's
things.
80 out of hundreds of thousands.
Sure. And then you keep bringing up the welfare, right? These are Somali welfare programs going to Somalians, right? Right. That's who it's supposed to be helping. Well, here's the negative. If we're having to take taxpayer dollars and give it to another group of people because they can't provide for themselves, is that like a quality that's like good or bad? Like that's not a good thing. That's kind of what the argument
Somalians
is.
are the only ones that are on welfare. We take
But
taxpayer
if
dollars
it-
and give it to
that's
everyone.
not- yeah, but
including
that's-
Somalians.
Hold on. We're gonna go to 81%
Can
of Somalis in Minnesota are on welfare. That's the point.
Yeah, can I simplify
81%.
this a little?
81%.
Can I simplify this a little bit?
Go ahead, Ryan. And then we're going to
literally
Castle.
nobody is arguing for collective guilt. What the point I made is that this fraud shed light on an ongoing problem, which includes overly high, disproportionate use of government services within a community, and Trump's actual policy response, not his rhetoric, not what he said at a rally, not what he said online, but his actual policy response was to say, if that's the case, why do we have a special program that is designed and in fact has been mass importing people from Somalia since the 90s? If it is leading to this result, that might not be worth doing. That does not mean that they can't apply for asylum. That does not mean that they have like some inability to access the country compared to any other nation. It means that the special program that gave special benefits to this country in particular might be is going to be curtailed because it's not in the best interest of the country. And that doesn't seem like a crazy thing to do.
Let's go to Castle.
If the basis for that is
I like that. I like that. But
Go to
hey,
hold on,
so
hold on,
even
hold
if
on.
we- even if we
Wait.
say-
Castle, go ahead. Castle, he's been waiting. Go ahead. Castle. There you go.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. So I just wanted to say one thing to Ryan too, is that I think the one good point you did make up was that the amount of fraud in this case was $1 billion. That's the most fraud I think that you can point to from an immigrant group that really raises eyebrows. And it's valid to say that, we don't have any instance of any other immigrant group raising to that level. Where I took issue with that point, and then I think also to Rob's point, was that it's clearly targeted, and at least from the rhetoric from some of the people on this panel, that people feel like Somalians need to be addressed in terms of whether they should be allowed to stay in the United States or not. Now, in Florida, and I mentioned this before, there are large parts of Miami that are 80% Cuban, Venezuelan. Somalians make up 1% of the population in Minnesota. They're about 10%, or not even 10% in Minneapolis. So they're a very small part of the state itself. And I think there are other parts of the country, and there are other large cities, whether it's New York, Miami, Dallas, wherever you name it, where there are larger parts of the immigrant community that actually take over these cities. There's no Islamification of a majority white state and city right now going on either, but there's no issue with them because they're either Catholic, they're people that support Trump. And that's why my point earlier is like, there's fraud going on here too. There's welfare fraud going on, Medicaid fraud, healthcare insurance fraud. So there are things that are going on that I don't think are being addressed either because it's certain demographics that we don't take issue with because of this color of their skin, their religion, whatever it is. And I think that's a big reason why Trump is targeting them more than others. That's my only point.
Would it make you feel better if I told you that, like, if we had a special program that let people from my home country of Ireland into the nation, and it turns out that what the Irish were by and large doing with that special
we do that with Cubans and Venezuelans.
Let me finish the point. You were just talking. What they were doing with that special program was by and large taking advantage of the welfare system and being linked to $1 billion fraud, that I would think shutting down the special program that gives the country special benefits that no other country receives might be a reasonable response.
But shutting down the program is fine. But then you're talking about taking the Somalians themselves and kicking them out.
No.
Or denaturalizing them.
Feeding our future was not a special program just for Somalians.
So wait, no.
Liberal Clock, you have no idea what you're talking about.
I can get off this point if we're going to agree to this. We all agree that shutting down the TPS program for immigration that was bringing in people from Somalia is a reasonable thing for Trump to do. That's what Castle suggested.
Nobody all agrees.
We're all on board with
wait. I thought you were talking about
I disagree with it, but yeah, it's well within
I don't think
power.
anybody on our side agreed with that.
Wait, yeah, Ryan, I wasn't
disagree
agreeing
with
to
it.
He just said it, so that's why I'm trying to clarify.
No. I thought you were talking about the food bank that was committing fraud. I was like, yeah, you can shut that down. I think the TPS program, that's a different thing. But to your point about the TPS program, again, there are other people in this country, talk about Venezuelans, who have special programs and they're sending remittance back to their country, or they have special programs where they're committing fraud too, and that's not looked into the same way. That's all. So there's a double standard.
My guy, we're in an escalating armed conflict with Venezuela, and we're
bringing them in
under the Alien Enemies Act. There is no.
Do you know how many people?
Getting more?
You know how many Venezuelans live in Florida right now who are coming over here for protected status? Cubans.
I mean,
Come on.
I mean, if
Probably
I
increasing
could,
amount, I know.
there's two things to say about this. First thing is what we're saying and what liberal cluck's not understanding here, right? That goes along with this is there is a hyper focus on Somalian community for various reasons. One, the program that Ryan's talking about that they get special status to come in. Second, because their culture is vastly different. That Ryan, what's the name of the exact program that allows the Somalians to come over?
It's
From a
called
TPS?
TPS. Yeah, it's a
Yes,
program that
temporary
was
protected status.
it started in
This
the
is-
90s because of the various like famines in Somalia.
So when you hear liberal cluck say that's not what feeding our future was about,
No.
one
I will
let-
fully admit that I was misunderstood. I missed that part of the
Good,
conversation, and I
good.
apologize.
Okay, so what we're saying is there's this hyper focus on Somalians because yes, they are vastly different culturally. It would be less of an issue if there were cultures coming in that were very similar. For example, if there were groups of Canadians that were balkanizing in cities, we would say,
Ew.
yeah, their culture's very similar to ours. We don't really see a difference. That doesn't make you racist to notice that there are things like people that are into Islam a lot and from cultures where crime is one of the top 25 worst crime countries in the world, where the average IQ of a Somalian, I think 68. That means that the average IQ of a Somalian this is the average, would qualify for mental retardation.
What I
in the
don't
United
understand,
States.
Rob, I just don't understand why
Jesus.
this is relevant in the context of this fraud case that we're talking about.
It's relevant
Because it
you
is collective
all-
guilt. It is about collective guilt. And they keep
Hold on,
admitting
hold
it
on,
and then
hold on,
pretending,
hold
and
on,
then
hold
they
on, hold on,
kind
hold on,
of
hold on.
shimmy
So
and pretend they're not.
Let me
wanna
just
show
say
you
something
what
right now
happened.
because
I wanna show-
Ryan.
I'm gonna
Wait.
Let
No,
Rob
Rob.
answer,
This
and
is
then
Hold on,
Tyler's
hold
had
on,
his
hold on,
hand
hold
up
on.
for a while.
All right. Rob, finish, and then we're
Make
gonna
the
go to
accusation.
Tyler, and then we'll go over back to y'all. Go ahead.
The reasons it's relevant.
Yeah,
is
Rob,
because
finish telling
your
us about
side-
race and IQ.
The reason it's relevant is because your side said you're only focused on this because of collective guilt against Somalians. And we're explaining, no, there are two issues. There are reasons to look at the Somali community, but the reason we're focused on this criminal case is because the massive scale of this criminal case and the convictions. That's why
That
we're
still
focused
doesn't answer
on
my
it.
question.
You're the
That's
people who
still not
brought
an
in.
answer.
That still has nothing to do with the people that you're like the TPS thing. None of those people who are like we don't even, I don't even know if any of these people came through TPS. And also, why would shutting this down have anything to do with that? That's what we're trying to ask.
Prove that the only reason we're focused on this is because they're Somalians. Go ahead.
Well, you're talking about the victims of this.
You literally just outlined 3 reasons why it's good to focus on them for being Somalians. So
wait.
what?
Prove
So
your
the
claim.
proof,
I want
Rob,
you to prove
Rob,
your
I can
claim
explain
that
it to
the
you right
reason
now.
I'm
Tyler,
I can
focused
explain it
on
to you right
this
now,
is
Rob.
because they're Somalians. Go ahead.
All right. Well, all
Rob,
right.
there are 300,000 Venezuelans that we're currently at war with that Ryan just said we were at war with Venezuela that have TPS status. So why are we bringing in Venezuela?
I'm so glad you get. I'm
they
so
probably want to
glad you
punish them
said
too.
that. Yes, no. Let me finish the point. Guess what country's TPS status has been revoked? Venezuela, because that's what happens
When?
when you have a problem with a country.
Let's go. Hold
they
on.
stop getting TPS
No, it's not.
status.
It's still in place.
No,
It's still in
your
place.
entire point is just absolutely.
Hold on. We're gonna go to Tyler after
Trump is
McLeod
treating
finishes.
all these countries exactly the same.
All right, Tyler, go ahead.
They're
So
still coming
Mullally-
over,
wait,
so that's
Tyler's
clearly
going
not
real
right.
quick.
Mullally- hold on. They can still come over other ways, but their TPS status was revoked, and then Kristi Noem at the SCOTUS level won the case to be able to deport 500,000 people that were brought in from Biden's potentially illegal visa plan. Anyways, that's to clear that up.
You can't just make shit up.
Yeah, Trump clearly is doing this because of merit-based immigration. This is 100% compassion-based immigration. The thing he ran against in his first term, ran against in his second term, and put all sorts of legislation and executive policy in place to shift toward merit-based immigration. We're weaponizing stupidity or making the racism in the gaps is the argument being used right now as tea leaf reading. We know why he's doing this. He's ran on it. I would just take his word for it until you have proof of something else. But 92%. Oops, sorry. 92,000 Somali.
You're right. Exactly the point. The point is there's a focus on Somalians and other communities, mind you. Remember the Haitians, right? There was a focus on them as well, and it's because of this merit.
Yeah, and JD Vance acknowledged he was lying.
That Trump.
No,
he did not acknowledge he was lying. That's an absolute lie. I'll be happy to talk about this in a second. However, what we're saying is Trump has this overarching argument about we're bringing in people from basically shithole countries. In other words, what he's saying is people that are a net drain on the system. You all make the boisterous claim the only reason we're focused on this criminality is because Trump talked about these people. And how does this mean that you're more likely to commit this sort of fraud if you're Somalian? No one's saying that. We're saying there are reasons to be skeptical of if it's good for our country to mass import Somalian people. And there is this fraud case that we're talking about, but no one has made the argument that being Somalian makes it more likely that you commit this exact type of fraud.
That's what. Hold on. Let me get to that. Hold on. Let me get. I finish my statement here because the mass importation. Ryan brought this up. I was ready. I go at Ryan here. He's my foil. 92,000 Somalians have been brought into the United States based on low estimates since the 90s. That's 35 years, 92,000 in whole. To say it's mass importation is a little bit crazy. For me, it's a little bit of a stretch, but we do this. We have a ton of wealth in the United States. And just like my boy Daniel Penny, I want to use my government to protect the weak on the world stage. Israel, Russia, and I want to protect the poor people and the poors and bring them in. These savages, these barbarians, these troglodytes from Somalia, they come into the United States after 2 to 3 generations. The IQ balances out, the productivity balances out. And with Hispanics in particular, when you bring them in, within 2 to 3 generations, they start identifying as white. So all the people that are worried about white replacement, there's your numbers coming back up. Like, we import these people within 3 generations. They are great members of society as long as it's done legally.
Prove that about.
Did you mean to say Ukraine? Did you mean to say Ukraine, or did you include Russia in the poor and the downtrodden?
I meant to say Ukraine. I'm sorry.
So
no, but it's much funnier the other way. We should have a bunch of Russian refugees because of the poor downtrodden. You know, it's just rough over there. Okay.
I thought he was joking when he said, but that just so I've got this clear, you're admitting that like our conversation around the fraud case is actually irrelevant. Like the immigration, TPS, and all that is like irrelevant to the actual fraud that was committed.
No, I gave 2 reasons as to why it has something to do with it. One, which no one has touched on, is one of the reasons that people are saying that this was allowed to go on, just like we saw with the grooming scandal in places like the UK, is that people were afraid to be called racist by actually cracking down on the fraud. You would not do this, for example, if you had an Appalachian white community.
What was the evidence of that one?
In this fraud. What was the evidence of that? Let's see.
Yeah.
We have according to expert Simon Hackinson, senior research on Heritage Foundation Border Security and Immigration Senator, says, when you come from a culture that provides you with nothing at center, everything is family, everything is clan. Let me see.
Just to be clear, we're looking for evidence right now that the reason that I believe the reason like some of these things weren't initially looked into or charged for was because of people being afraid of being called racist. That was your claim, right, Rob?
I actually disagree with the idea that this was even allowed to go on because, we talked about that at the beginning. It really wasn't.
Well, hold on. I hate when people do. I hate when people do this. So I gotta ask. Wait, what's your evidence that that's not true? Like, Rob's obviously looking for it. Do you have evidence that Rob's claim isn't true? Like, you can't just be like, oh, it's not true. If you don't have any evidence, it's not true.
The
like,
Minnesota.
The
Minnesota. I've already. We
hold on, Clark. I'm not talking to you. Simmer down.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm asking Coder. I'm asking Coder because Coder just told Rob that his statement is that you don't have any evidence in this. Okay, do you have any evidence that it's not true?
If that's the case, I would. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would. If that's true, I'd like to know. I'd like to see the evidence because I mean, that would be very interesting. And yeah, and it would. And to be clear, hang on, let me finish. And to be clear, I would. Good, hang on. I would say that's a bad reason to not charge people. I would say like being scared of being called racist is a bad reason not to charge someone. So that's why I want to know.
Yes. So do I have a chance to respond?
A report by Minnesota's nonpartisan Office of the Legislative Auditor about the lapses that enable meal fraud later found that the threat of litigation and of negative press, racism, affected how state officials used their regulatory power. You can go find the article.
Does it say racism in your source?
It does say racism. It also says the group told the state agency that failing to promptly approve new applicants from minority-owned businesses, in quotes, would result in a lawsuit featuring accusations of racism that would be sprawled across the news.
Well, it did result in a lawsuit. Did it not?
Yeah, the lawsuit was part of
not a racism lawsuit.
But
actually, it was a discrimination lawsuit. Yeah, it literally was a racism lawsuit.
I guess my question is if it's not racism, what do you mean by negative press?
What do I mean?
Taking
I
away
wasn't-
funding from
Yeah, if
taking
it's-
away from
that they
funding
did
from
that they
people
were
who are
doing
potentially.
avoid racism the whole time. These clucks
Let Liberal
are
Clark
the
answer
ones
the
saying
question.
that they're not doing it.
Yeah, well, yeah. So
they
Clark,
did
if
it
it's
because
not
they
racism,
even-
what is
they're
the
not wanting to be called
accusation?
racist. When it's
So,
obvious,
one
they said they
possibility
don't
is-
want to
Let
be
Clark
called
answer. Let Clark
racist.
answer. Let Clark answer.
Okay, so can you actually put that in the group chat,
Hold on.
Brian? Because I would like to read that.
Sure, he can
But
post it in the group
anyways,
chat. But yeah, what is
As
that?
well.
My guess would be, and this is only a guess because I'm not looking at the same source that this guy is, would be that taking away funding from NGOs that are supposedly feeding poor people is bad press. We saw that when SNAP benefits disappeared during the government shutdown.
Yeah, bad press and bad policy.
I honestly feel like
to be clear, hang on, Ryan. To be clear, all of these programs, like the majority of these programs, are actually still going to feeding children. This was one very bad case, but that doesn't mean that these programs are inherently bad, right? Which is another thing that's being kind of weaved underneath all this.
Who cares if 90% of them are good? We're talking about the 10% that resulted in $1 billion being swindled of taxpayer money. Stop trying to.
So pay out the 90% that's good.
Most of these are fine. No, we don't give a fuck about those. Those are fine. We're not trying to prosecute those motherfuckers. We're prosecuting the motherfuckers.
No, you're not engaging with what I just said,
$1
Ray.
billion.
I mean,
What's wrong with you, Ryan? Why do you always have to like make shit up and pull shit out of
what I find really
You
confusing
didn't
about
respond to anything I said. It's okay. Go. Someone else can go.
what I
Everyone
find really
else heard what you
confusing
said.
about this conversation is it feels like people, at least my friends on the left here, just don't remember what it was like in the country in like 2020, 2021, 2022. Everybody was being called racist all the time. That was like what every story in the news was like.
Nobody
That's
ever
just
called
what
me
the national
racist.
media was at that point. And then we're also like, I guess, confused about the way that politics works in this country, where there's a problem, it goes on for a while, it doesn't have a national news story, then there's a big event, it sheds light on the issue, and suddenly there's a lot of attention paid. Like, yeah, like the issues in Minnesota with welfare, SNAP, etc. This has been long-standing. The fraud's been going on for a long time. Now there's a media moment, so people are paying attention to it and doing something about it. That's not weird. That's how politics typically happens.
They've been paying
So
attention to it and doing something
I'm
about
kind
it
of
since
amused
2020.
that this is confusing to anybody.
But they've been paying attention to it and doing something about it since 2020. You're making it out like they just started in 2025. That's just not the case.
We're relitigating what we already talked about. I'd like to get to
But
some specific
y'all
evidence.
keep getting it wrong.
I'd like
Hold
to
on,
have
we're
not.
Yeah.
Hold on.
No, you're just selectively hearing me, and as a result,
Yeah, go ahead,
your
Rob.
imagination is.
Well, I also heard a
getting
part
it
where you
wrong,
said
but-
we were getting called racist in 2020.
Hold
I
on.
wasn't called racist in 2020. First time I ever been called racist was today.
You're a
2025 in
racist.
America.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Rob. Go get the
I mean,
evidence.
in
I don't want
fairness,
you to
you
feel
do
that.
seem
Ah,
like racist.
everybody.
Yes.
Rob, evidence. You said you wanted to get into that. Go ahead.
The attorney general that would have been in charge of these prosecutions in Minnesota at the time was Keith Ellison, right? Now, there's been evidence that's been introduced in court cases from an audio exchange he had with people involved in Feeding Our Family and other people in the Somalian business community. And this meeting occurred in December of 2021. Step one. We have this is in December of 2021. You all agree because this attempt to freeze was first occurring in 2020 that at this point that Ellison would have known that they were credibly accused of fraud and him and the Walls administration tried to stop the funding, correct?
Yeah, so for the record, real quick, I think when you first mentioned this recording, you claimed it was Tim Walls. I may be wrong about that. I may have misheard it, but that's why I wanted
Walls
to see
is
it. But no,
also
I knew
accused.
I think they're
Walls
both in it. Is what
accused
he's
to
saying.
be in the recording.
No, there's two separate meetings and two separate recordings. The one I haven't heard the audio of, but the House is claiming, the oversight committees, that they have the tape, they're claiming it. This one, we could actually hear the recording because it's been entered into evidence in a trial. And so we know that in December of 2021, Keith Ellison, the top prosecutor in the land of Minnesota, after you said that these prosecutors in the Walls administration were aggressively trying to...
I didn't say prosecutors. I said DOE, but go ahead.
Okay. Who would prosecute the case then?
No, I didn't say that they prosecuted the case. I said DOE froze their funding.
Okay, but clearly that the top prosecutor would be aware of allegations of fraud that led to the freezing of funding and wouldn't be sitting down breaking
The
bread
prosecutor
with these
could.
people.
The prosecutor could totally be corrupt. I didn't look into him. I don't know anything about him. But and I would say if he is, fuck him. Get rid of him. Send him to jail.
Okay,
I am
just
for
wanna,
that.
Do we see
What's the quote
tension
you're
here,
saying
though?
he said?
Do we
Great.
see,
I'm
do
glad
we
you
see
feel
the
that way.
tension
So
here
that's
when it
what we
comes?
need to do
I
with
mean,
Walt.
wow, there's so much to say. I'm not going to be able to get through. But we see the tension here. So when the MDE, the Department of Education, freezes the fund, you're like, yes, Walls would have been aware of that, but not Ellison. Possibly not
Well,
Ellison.
no, I was using
the
the
Attorney
standard that
General.
Ryan gave to us to say that. That was me using the standard that Ryan gave to us.
Yeah, the whole
But
buck
my
stops with
real
Tim
opinion,
thing.
my
Yeah.
actual opinion is that Walls is probably not involved in a lot of this shit. He's probably appoints people to the DOE,
All right,
and the people take care of it. And if something comes up, then buck stops at Walls.
This is
I saw his standard.
Rob, if you just give me 1 second. I hope this doesn't have to be said. My standard is a political standard. Rob is talking about a criminal investigation. Those are entirely different things with entirely different standards.
All right,
Go
go
It's
ahead.
a fine standard, Cluck. I'm sure you have the
This
same
is
grace for Hexat.
Exhibit 710, introduced by Amy Bach's defense attorney, is this audio. Let's describe some of the audio. We have in the recording, you hear the voice of Salim Said and a bunch of them. I'll just read a couple of them. Who's defendant number 3, co-owner of the Safari restaurant and co-defendant with Bach in the recent trial. He was convicted of all 21 counts. Egram described it at 1 minute and 8 seconds, a huge contributor to Mayor Fry of Minneapolis. Ellison's heard at 1:22 to respond. I hope Fry remembers. At 2:45, Aspir Omar's introduced. The first but hardly last accusation of racism is dropped at 4 minutes 20 seconds. Beginning at 6 minutes, Omar describes his organization's fundraising prowess on behalf of elected officials that are willing to protect communities of color. To repeat, Omar's not accused of wrongdoing. At 8 minutes, Ellison gives his initial thoughts. He describes his interventions within DHS Commissioner Jody Harpstead, stating at 8:15, Harpstead left her purse earlier in the year. The Minnesota Star Tribune offered this headline in January 2025. Minnesota Department of Human Services Commissioner Jody Harpstead leaving post, led the department. She's departing the agency as it faces renewed scrutiny over fraud in its programs. Ellison states on the recording that we are in the middle of battles with agencies now. He asserts at 8:59 or at 9:07, quote, Walls agrees with me that this piddly, stupid stuff running small businesses out of business is terrible. At 9:22, he could be here drawing a diagram. At 9:50, he agrees with the propositions that there is discrimination in his agencies against East African businesses. What you see if you take this in context is that these people from the Somali community are like, we think that we're being targeted by these agencies because of racism. And what we have is Ellison saying, yes, Walls and I agree. It is racism that why you're being targeted. So yes,
that's not how I heard that at all.
Isn't it possible that like these communities are actually discriminated against, and that using the cover of a lot of ongoing discrimination, these specific people took advantage of that situation and did this fraud? Isn't that like perfectly compatible with everything you just outlined?
No, I don't think that would be compatible. The fact that we see from what we're now
walk me
seeing
through the contradiction, please.
Right, I will walk you through the contradiction. The fact that we see that this was blatant fraud, that the indictments are showing that this fraud was easy for anyone to see. And then we have the top prosecutor in the state saying, Walls agrees with me that you guys are being targeted by these agencies because of racism. Right? That's why it is. No, it beggars belief that this wasn't part of their reason that they weren't looking into it.
To be clear, you're not saying that the quote was... Sure.
Go ahead.
What?
No, go ahead. After you go and he responds, we're gonna move it along to something else. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we should. But like the quote is about those communities being targeted, or he's saying you guys specifically, the ones I'm talking to right now on this recording, you guys are being targeted because you're Somalian, or he's acknowledging Somalian discrimination. Like those are two very different claims. You acknowledge that, right?
He's acknowledging that the targeting by these agencies of looking into Somalian businesses and groups is based on racism.
And it could be, right? Realistically, that's logically possible, right? You would acknowledge.
It's also logically possible that Kamala Harris was engaged with these Somalians running sex trafficking of children. You'll admit that that's logically possible, correct?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so I wouldn't vote for Democrats.
So no contradiction in so thank you. So you did not walk me through a contradiction. Gibbs, you can reframe or whatever.
It's not. The contradiction is you guys claim that racism wasn't part of this when we literally have these business people, many of them that were accused and convicted in this, saying we feel we're being targeted for racism. And and Ellison says, yes, Walls and I both agree you're being targeted for racism. And you are like, well, that's not a contradiction because maybe these same people that were convicted were being targeted for racist reasons was on other things, but that's not a reason that they wouldn't have been gone after here, that people would have been fearful of
Yeah.
calling them racist. It's a joke. Once more,
So just to be clear, just so I can, since again I'm being,
it's you pretending
since-
to not understand things.
yeah, since again I'm being misrepresented, I would like to clarify, since I'm being misrepresented again. What I actually said was that there's no evidence that I'm aware of that these people did not bring charges because they were scared of being called racist. That's what I asked for. Rob never provided that, and he also did not provide anything like that in his last speech about these tapes. But that's okay.
I provided evidence that we saw that these people were saying, we think we're being targeted by racism, and we donate a lot of money to you. And then the people that were tasked with going after them said, we agree, you've been targeted because of racism. That's what I provided.
All right,
evidence.
before
Those communities
listen, I'm going to move it along because I know y'all are going to get
Gibbs
into
did
this
his super
next one.
move.
Yeah, I know that we're going to get into the fight here in a second because I think that y'all are all kind of beating around the bush, and so I'm just going to fucking ask the question. Is it racism, or is it just isolationism or a new American decision to not want your culture to change? Traditionally, Latin American immigration, people have assimilated, right? We've seen in Europe, people have not assimilated, and it seems this is kind of a microcosm of that with Somalians specifically not assimilating, and now we're having the fraud and this other stuff and some other accusations by people on the right. Hold on.
You are
Hold on.
conflating things that
Hold on.
everyone's saying that you're not conflating.
That's what I'm doing. I'm doing
Brother,
the thing.
it's his show. Shut up.
I'm doing the thing. I literally just said I'm doing. I literally just said I'm doing the thing, right? Did I just say that? I said that. So what I'm saying is, there's people that are arguing that some cultures, specifically Islamic cultures, are incompatible with the United States culture, and the Somalians being a prime example of that. What should we do? Should we get out of the asylum treaty? Should we denaturalize people? Is that seem to be, or is it racist to ask these questions? Because that seems to be the fight y'all are wanting to have, but y'all aren't really having. So let's just have that fight. What are our thoughts?
I think that Somalian culture, there are probably aspects of it that are incompatible with American culture. Like if any of that oppressive against women bullshit that many Americans actually believe in, by the way, it's incompatible with
Somalia is 99%.
with
Sunni
incompatible
Islam, right?
with
So that's
and
by
groupers are
definition,
100%
they
like
believe in
that.
all the
So
stuff that you
and
don't like.
groupers are 100% like that. So anyways, I think those aspects of their culture is incompatible with American culture. But I disagree with the idea that these people don't assimilate. I think they probably do assimilate, and I do not think this
Really?
fraud case has
Can you give
anything
an
to
example
do.
of where they've assimilated?
Yes, the individuals. Yes,
Please.
absolutely.
Yes, please.
Minnesota.
Do so.
Like
right now.
Wait, that's actually
in
interesting.
Minnesota.
Do y'all consider Minnesota assimilated? And let's take this quick poll. Tyler,
Ilhan Omar is
do you think Tyler? I just want a quick yes or no on the panel. Do you think Minnesota is like a good example of assimilation? Yes or no, Tyler?
No.
No. Okay. No. What about you? Castle. Castle.
Oh, you're pointing the wrong
Oh,
direction.
me?
Backwards.
You're talking about
mirrored
the
on your-
Somalians.
Oh yeah, my bad. It's not muted for me, but okay.
I mean, I would say
Just
for
yes
a
or no.
majority. I mean, there are probably some folks who aren't. All right,
Right.
yeah, sure.
Right.
But this isn't a yes or no type of.
Hold on, just real fast,
but-
motherfucker. I'm gonna mute you if you
It's easier to
We're doing a thing.
first, right? So yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I know.
You, Ryan, assimilated? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Other Ryan, are you assimilated?
Wait,
Yeah or nay?
Not a good example.
Which one's other right?
There's two. Okay. All right. Whatever. This has been an
Why don't we
epic
both
episode.
answer?
We'll call Coder. He says yes, it is assimilation.
Okay.
Ryan Mullally says no, it's not a
Okay.
good
What about
example.
you, Clark? Yes or no, Clark?
Can I clarify? I don't think every single Somali in Minnesota is assimilated.
okay.
But yes, as
Fine.
Council pointed out, a mostly white area elected Ilhan Omar.
All right.
He's
all right.
asking for a
Is the
generalization.
community an example of assimilation?
Yeah. How about Rob? Rob, what do you think? No. Yes or no?
No, I don't
All
think
right.
it's a good
Clark,
example.
I'm assuming you're going to say yes. So, all right, we clearly have some. Why is it assimilated or not assimilated?
You didn't ask me.
Well,
He wants to say something.
I can assume what you're
Grid says yes. Grid says yes.
Yeah,
No.
Grid
I
definitely
wanna give
believes
an
it's
example.
assimilated.
If you look, if by assimilation you mean made the current average IQ in the area drop 30 points, then I could agree with you. Because I actually shocked Tyler the other night because we were talking about this, and I said, "Look, it's a simple fact. 99% of the of Somalis are Sunni Islam, and their culture is a culture of cousin fucking, and that scientifically drives down drives down your mental health and your IQ. And what did you find when you looked that up, Tyler?
48%. 48% of Somalis
Hey, Destiny, got a
are
charger.
either first or second generation born, or first or second cousin in a relationship with first or second cousins, or the result of a relationship.
God, they might as
48%.
well be Mormon in the
Great.
U.S. or just in Somalia.
Yeah, in Somalia maybe, but I don't. Is that
So
true of the immigrants
if you
here?
drag down the local
Just general.
population's IQ by 30 points, you cannot assimilate into our culture.
Great, that's the most
Yeah,
American
so
thing you could possibly do.
I want to ask you about that specific claim, right? So you're telling me that they're dragging down the what is the average IQ of Somalian immigrants in the United States?
That's
Do you
a
know?
Tyler question. I'm not a walking
Well,
Rubik's Cube.
it might be a Tyler question, but you're the one making claims based on that idea, right? You're the one making allegations about that specific value. It's a question.
All right, so you know
Clearly you don't know the answer, right? You just acknowledge you don't know the answer to that.
What do you think? Just
I think you were talking out of your ass, and you were saying that all
You
these
think I'm
people are dumb
talking
and
out of my
like you
Okay.
because you're racist.
what do you think the average Somali IQ is?
I have no idea, but I wouldn't claim to, and I wouldn't claim to say that it's dragging down the average IQ
See,
so
I have
to
not
30
talked to
points.
Tyler about this, but I bet Tyler's going to find it's between 80 and 85.
Is there
First
something wrong
generation.
with Coder's mic? I don't like.
Yes.
I can't, it's popping and crazy. I can't understand anything he's fucking
What
saying.
he
First
turns it up
generation-
so much, it
Has it been
trips
done this whole
out.
time?
No.
First generation, there's almost no difference between natives of Somalia. Second generation, we see a steep incline in education and productivity as well.
Wow,
I
the
put that
simulation.
in
That's crazy.
I put that into the Discord. Yeah, let me answer Gibbs' question real quick, because Gibbs, no, it's not racism. It's xenophobia, which I think is a perfectly fine thing to be, especially if you're somewhat of a natist or a nationalist. I'm a pretty big U.S. nationalist myself. Back when the Democratic Party didn't hate the United States in the 90s. So this is American culture. Franklin didn't want the Papist Catholics in here. We see from the historical document, Gangs of New York, that the Irish had a hard time coming in here. Eastern Europeans faced a ton of discrimination coming here, not just from nativists, but from progressive eugenicists that wanted the Nordic model, which is West or Eastern European. So the Jews were denied fleeing the Holocaust. This has just been the way it's always been in the United States. And you see that in parties that take power. When your party takes power politically or culturally, you start doing things to solidify and keep your power in the long term that might not be the most democratic in the world. So, this is just human nature to say, this is our slice of the pie, and these new people are going to take a little bit of it.
Should we?
Yeah, I agree with that, Tyler, but it's not necessarily a good thing. Right.
So should we leave the asylum treaty and not accept any more refugees? If that's the case.
No, we should
For Somalians particularly,
I don't
or
like
just
that.
anybody?
Or in general, or both.
Jews during Holocaust, man, I don't like that. I think we should stay in. Maybe a little bit of tweaking to it to make it not so abusable.
Or
but
put
yeah,
a
I don't
temporary
I
hold on
agree. I would
refugees for
agree
50
with,
years or something.
I would totally agree with a good faith conversation about how we can tweak the refugee asylum system in order to make it not so abusable for people who just want to come over here for economic.
I can tell you how.
That is a reasonable thing. I
can tell you exactly how.
Go
So,
ahead.
Bill Clinton signed a cruel and unusual punishment deal with somebody, or maybe it was a treaty. That's what we need to leave, because that's what Obama used as his legal mandate to open up asylum to the abuse that we saw in 2009 when he issued that memo. After that, that's what Joe Biden also used. What they did was they took reasonable fear, which is a new category they invented, and downgraded the requirement to prove reasonable fear. Trump has the juxtapose, which is justified fear, I'm pretty sure it is, the justified fear asylum clause, and that would be one that actually requires the burden of proof. So the reasonable fear thing came from Clinton's a cruel and unusual punishment treaty. That needs to go.
And we can do a lot without leaving the asylum treaty in addition to that. Like, for example, we can create centers or require that people stay outside the borders while their asylum application is being processed in certain instances. Particularly, we can focus on issues where the asylum seeker has crossed multiple countries to get to the U.S. So, the idea being, if you have a fear of your home country, but you've crossed 6 or 7 countries to get to the United States, why are you seeking asylum here as opposed to in any of those other places? So there's a lot of ways that we can tweak it without leaving the asylum treaty. And the Trump administration is doing some of those things. The issue
What
is
would you think of having
those kind of fixes can be, they're executive policy fixes. So the next administration can just reverse it, which is what ended up happening when we went from Trump to Biden in the first time, that all the policies that were meant to limit immigration and limit asylum seeking then get reversed and the floodgates open again.
What would y'all think of like having an app that people could use to be able to claim, file their asylum claim and stay in their country while they're waiting for, hey, this might be a real case, this is probably not a real case, while they're waiting for their background checks and stuff like that.
And that would be
So,
really cool if we had one of
I'll put
those.
it in the
Benefit
back,
of
but
that.
the
Yeah, it
average
would be.
IQ in Somalia is 67. The average IQ in the United States is 97. That is the 30-point difference that I mentioned earlier. So, you know, go look at it, read them weep, whatever you want to do.
Grid.
Why do we want to bring people into the country?
If a lot of
Why do we
people
want
from
to bring
Somalia,
stupid people into the country?
if a lot of people from Somalia are coming in through refugee status or TPS, they probably are coming from countries where they're not able to get the education and especially if you're coming from a
Education
country
has
where you
nothing
don't
to do
even
with
let you,
Of course
especially
it
if you're
does.
coming.
Are you this stupid?
Especially
Have you had your IQ tested? IQ has nothing to do with
You think
education.
Somalia has, hang on, Greg, you think Somalia has the same like robust IQ testing that we have here?
It was performed by an international agency.
Well,
Counterpoint.
wait, so are you saying this is
I mean,
all
come
just
on,
like
you guys
they're
just
genetic?
admit they're stupid people,
Wait, are
and
you
we
saying-
don't.
wait,
We should not be
Greg,
importing
are you saying
more
this is
stupid
all
people
genetic?
I don't
into
think-
the United
Greg,
States. There
Greg,
should
is this
be.
all genetic?
We should not
Yeah,
drag
absolutely
down our
not.
average IQ
Well,
to
let's-
make you
let me-
feel better.
Let me ask the Dims. Like,
Greg,
the
is
left
this
I
all
would
genetic?
say,
Go ahead, Rob.
I believe
say,
Grid was
all the shit you're saying.
I will
Let's go to Rob.
say, I will say that a lot of it is genetic. In fact, we can see there is direct correlation to societies that allow inbreeding to the lowering of IQ. We see this all across the world. The more open societies are, particularly those that are Islamic, that say that it's okay to marry your cousin, and the countries we see where rates of cousin marriage are very high, we also see that there is an almost direct correlation to all sorts of negative consequences, including low IQ. The data on this
So-
is
Hey,
quite
guys, is it legal
stark.
to marry
So
your cousin in
when the
Minnesota?
second-
Lowers your IQ.
When the second and
Is it
third
legal to marry your cousin in
generation of these
Minnesota?
people, okay, when the second and third generation of these people get higher IQs, where does that come from?
Well, it
Magic,
could be
apparently.
Well,
several
intermarry
reasons.
with
Well,
smart
first off, let
people.
me see that proof. Let's see
So
it.
they're breeding
Magic
with the
soil
white
or
stuff,
whatever.
We
right?
actually
I'm not
don't
too sad.
know that
Let
that
me
happens
see.
because we don't have the
That's
proof.
fine. Let me see the proof of the increase in IQ from third generation Somalians. Go ahead.
I mean, Tyler was the one that said it. I
have
don't
a-
actually
I have a
it.
question for the
I'm just going
lefties.
off of what he said.
The
I'm
people
going
on
to
the-
look at that evidence.
I put it in the Discord. I tagged you in the group chat with it.
Well, so I have a question for the lefties. The right, or the people on the right here have brought a litany of reasons why they don't think we should be bringing these people here. What are the benefits other than like, oh, it feels good to like save people from a war-torn country? What benefits is it bringing to bring this group here? Because it seems like fraud is a problem. Seems like higher crime rates. Seems like
Well,
education,
it's not
IQ.
a problem. It's not a problem amongst the population. But go ahead.
Oh, okay, well, it seems like
Yeah.
81,
80
80
people
hold
out
on,
of
okay, this
100,000.
is a problem. We have a group that we brought here as refugees. 81%, we know that's the number, is on welfare. You don't see that as a problem? That 81% of these people are welfare, they're not contributing, it's a net loss? Is like, what is the benefit to bringing these
Well,
people in?
you're getting more claims in there. I've heard this 80% number, which I'm a little bit skeptical. But even if that's true, like that doesn't mean they're a
Tyler
net
has
loss,
a
right?
proof.
Like that's a stronger claim. Like
Tyler,
you're making
where-
multiple claims
where
there.
at in the Discord? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
I
throw it
think
up again.
the claim though about that Gibbs is that you come over here and let's say you're using welfare. The hope is that it's an investment into your kids' future and the future of the country that we're growing. They're becoming educated. They're going to college. They become productive, even more productive members of society than a lot of
I like
people who were
that.
born here in America. And so I think that's the claim. Is like there's a lot of
Right.
immigrants who
Okay.
do really great things here, and I think that's the hope is that it's an investment, even if it's you claim it's a net loss, and I'm sure
Yeah,
some
they
people aren't making
asshole.
money here. I think
Greg.
that's just the
There's
best
also the
I love that
population.
energy.
use of it.
Hold
Greg,
on,
go
I
ahead.
love that
Also the
energy.
population
Castle, I love that energy, man. But here's the problem I have. That's not what they're doing. They're not assimilating. They stay in these groups. They're very tribal people to start with, and they stay in these groups. And actually, for whatever reason, in these Democrat strongholds, they're kind of put in these groups. They kind of kept in these groups, I guess, so they can be kept on welfare. I don't know. That's just a guess. I have no proof of that. But they don't assimilate out. They don't do what we would expect, and that is become actual Americans. They don't.
Well, I don't know
They
if you're saying
Because
that
what they become
from
is
a
they
first
become
immigrant,
a
from like
dependent
a
upon
first.
our society.
So I don't know
And
what
now
the
we do
stats are
have 2
between first and
generations, and
second
we don't see
generation
it
grid.
improving.
Well,
But
so
I
part of
don't know. I think a lot of second generation Americans do think that being outcast is probably not favorable to them, and so they would want to assimilate. Like there's a lot of young kids, whether they're Hispanic, Somali, whatever,
Okay,
like they go to
give me
school
an
and they're not going
example
to
of the
go back home
Somalis
and
in Minnesota doing that.
well,
Bohong.
so
of assimilating. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
a lot of young kids right now who are Somalian, who are second generation, they listen to rap music, they go to basketball, like they're incorporated
sure?
into American sports,
no,
American. I mean, not all of them are
You're
going to be.
asking you're asking for something that hasn't actually been studied in a way that we can look up, but you
no,
also don't like have proof that this isn't happening either.
we're making this so much more complicated than it needs to be. Like I think in basically every segment of the population that you look at, you see the same phenomenon, which is that when first generation immigrants come in, often they're buoyed by like immigrant pluck, meaning their self-selection. The people who worked very hard to immigrate over here are very motivated to succeed. And you also see communities that are stuck on welfare, stuck on benefits, where people get trapped. I was a teacher in East New York and Brooklyn. This is exactly what it was like. I had a lot of families who were Nigerian immigrants. Their kids did fantastic. They were super hardworking. Their parents were super invested in their education. They, by and large, did great. The hardest people in those communities to work with, family-wise, were the families that had been in this community for like 5, 6, 7 generations on welfare, on the government systems. The problem that we have with this particular immigration segment is that because of the TPS program, we've been importing people en masse, as Tyler said it, for compassionate reasons. Because it was that, they do not have immigrant pluck. They are coming here and they are taking advantage of government programs, and they are not advancing themselves in the same way that an immigrant community that immigrates through traditional means without the benefit of so much government assistance would. So I mean, this is a very common phenomenon. We see this in many segments of the US population. The problem is when you combine mass immigration policies with robust social welfare systems, they don't mix. It's oil and water. You have to pick one.
Again,
because
studies show.
How do they not mix?
Studies show, looking from 2014 to 2023, studies show that the native household in Minnesota, so someone who was born in this country of non-Somalian descent, 21% chance they're on any welfare. If you're a Somalian immigrant household, 81%. 81, so native 21% on some form of welfare, Somalian 81%. Now, one of the things that we heard said earlier
But
was
you guys perceive welfare as a moral failing, and so like that you're adding that as if it's a bad thing. But like, if people need welfare, there should be on welfare.
One of the things that we heard earlier was, well, there are Americans on welfare. The argument that we're making is we should not mass import people from cultures that are massively different than ours, particularly if they're going to be a burden on the system. The moral duty of our government is to take care of the citizens of this government, not to increase the burden and be able to offer less assistance to them because we're bringing in mass amounts of people from around the world that are using this welfare system and taking more out of the system than they're putting in. Yes, it is a failing, and we should not be doing that. It is immoral.
What percent
Well,
of
when
those
Grid
people,
throws in,
what percent of the Somali people that are on welfare are American citizens?
These are immigrants that why would citizenship matter? One,
you mentioned citizenship. You said we need to take care of American citizens.
Right. So the
which they would
Can't
be
get
if they
welfare
are.
unless you're a citizen.
That's not
That'd be
true.
more interesting.
You certainly can
That's
get
absolutely
welfare
not
even
true.
if you're not a citizen. Secondly, right, the idea is that our government's supposed to take care of the people of this country. We're not supposed to intentionally import people and then say, oh, now we'll give them citizenship. Oh, now they're citizens, so now it's treated just the same and we have to give them welfare. No, instead what we should be doing is
Well, wait, if they are, hang on, if they are an immigrant, Rob.
Fine, can you control yourself? Every time you speak, I'm gonna talk over you, just so you know.
Well, maybe I'll just talk. I can interrupt you too. We can both interrupt a few times. It can happen. Yeah,
that we don't have to. What we can see is that we don't have a moral duty to bring people in that would be a net drain. There's an argument to be made that we shouldn't bring in cultures anyways that are massively different, even if they help us out economically. But certainly we shouldn't bring in those cultures if they are a detriment to us economically, which is the case from Somalian immigrants.
Right, go ahead, respond. I know you want.
I don't even know if that last. I don't even know if it's true that there are an economic detriment, right? Being on welfare doesn't mean that you're like being even majority on welfare doesn't mean that the entire community is an economic detriment. I don't see that follows, and that was a stronger claim than them just being on welfare. And I don't know any ways to provide any data for that.
Why don't you see that? Why don't you see that a group that is on welfare being
Because there's other ways to contribute. Yeah. Because if people are contributing to the economy in other ways and also being on welfare, like I don't know what the net is there. It's going to vary.
Well, the rest of them were defrauding the American government for $1 billion.
You say, to be clear, the rest of them, you're talking about 70-something people. Like, you're not talking about the millions or however many fucking Somalians there are, hundreds of thousands.
Led by a white woman. Led by a white woman.
Yeah,
let me, please, let me get in there. I can make a very good argument for compassion-based immigration.
Tyler, go ahead.
Please, Tyler, please. To be, I want to. Oh, come on.
Go ahead,
Fuck
Coda.
me.
Go ahead, Coda. Coda, go ahead. Then we'll go to Tyler.
Yeah,
I just want to be very clear that although Ryan and Rob have been very careful to avoid towing this line, Grid has absolutely full-throated the idea that we should be doing collective punishment here, right?
Tyler, go ahead.
So we actually, as I was talking about earlier, over 35 years, we haven't even brought in 100,000 Somalis by low-end estimates and under 130,000 by high-end estimates. Over 35 years, we're bringing these people in, and we're slowly assimilating them generation by generation. We need to do this because of birth rate loss, unless you want your portfolios to tank, unless you want most of our social services for old people to tank, our government to not be able to afford things. Now, that does merit another conversation about our current spending levels and regulation and things like that. But unless we change those things that people don't want to change through voting, we need to continuously grow. We need to bring people in. This merit-based immigration thing works to a certain degree, absolutely, but other countries caught on to it. Everyone else wants merit-based immigration too, and if you think our government is going to be able to bribe people better than the communist state of China to go work there, then you're fucking crazy. They are able to throw the fucking sink at them. So we have to find other ways to do it, and some of the other ways we do it is bringing these people that are undesirables on the world stage and grow them from the ground up. The most loyal employee you're ever going to have as a business owner is going to come in, untrained, not know what the fuck he's doing, and you're going to train his ass from the ground up, and he's going to stay there his entire life. He's going to suck your dick for $12 an hour. That's what
Not
you
if he
want.
has a 68 IQ. He might suck your dick if you're his cousin, but yeah, if they have a 68 IQ, they're not going to be able to contribute in the way that you're saying. You know?
And if you're a Somalian immigrant, this is what they think of you, by the way. Just to be clear.
Honestly, Tyler, the problem with it is that when we combine immigration policy with robust social programs the way that we have, we disincentivize the American dream, which is the key part of assimilation within these communities. So even what you get is there are exceptions, of course, I'm generalizing, but by and large, you're going to find communities that are less likely to get off of welfare, less likely to succeed, because in part they're insular and because they don't have to. That's the problem with it is. It disincentivizes people to go out and do the things that make the American dream possible. There are other immigration patterns that are better. It's just a better way of doing things. This is not a good way of doing things.
I want to like kind of chime in here. I think that part of it that y'all keep kind of glossing over, is the culture aspect, right? Like I know, at least for me in Texas, I know a lot of illegal immigrants. I know some that have become legal ones, right? Lo and behold, living by the border, that happens, right? And one of the guys I'll know, his name is Juan. He's now legal. He's a legal alien here. He started off illegally. The guy worked 3 jobs. He owns a Porsche. He just got married to some fat American woman. He's got like 3 kids now. He's like lived the American dream. Like he just like
name direction.
Yeah, right. Hold on. What? No.
One direction.
No, that'd be a good one. No. But this guy, all right, so he like that's what living the American dream. He like wanted to come here, even though he did it illegally at first. Then he worked in the process to become legal, and he like stabs and he's never been on welfare, like as far as I know, right? He worked 3 jobs. That's kind of like that immigrant pluck. Even if he did it like the wrong way at first, he like did it until he could do the right way, right? And this way, though, with the compassionate stuff that like Tyler's talking about, it seems like we're rewarding bad behavior is kind of the issue I'm having. And I don't know if I'm going to go as far as what Grid and Rob are saying with the IQ and the cousin fucking, but I am going to say I think that it's pretty evident when we look at Europe and we look at America. Latin American immigration has been beneficial to the U.S. versus Islamic immigration has been very bad for Europe. And like we can see the crime rates, we can see the economic disparity that's happening, we can see countries falling apart. Like we're seeing this all UK has already lost their identity. Like I think this is a concern that we need to at least think about in the US as well. Like
You're conflating a little bit
I'll
because what
say-
happened with Europe is a lot to do with refugees that don't get the same level of vetting as immigration, especially the high bar of immigration we set in the United States. I'm talking about the immigrants we bring in. And we're bringing in 1.25 million people a year. Trump got rid of the lottery, so we saw it decrease by about 4% under his first term. But we're still bringing that many people in. They're coming. A lot of them are coming in with work visas. People from the southern border, especially from
Tyler,
Mexico. Sorry. Let me just finish.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let me just finish the last sentence. Especially the people coming in from Mexico, they're coming in, they're earning, and then they're leaving. They're not loyal to the country. They're just coming in to make some money, and then they're getting the fuck out once they've earned enough. We want people that are going to stay here generationally, and that's how you get them.
Like the Guatemala.
Tyler, I'm so glad you made that point. I agree with you about the difference between refugee immigrants and immigrants that come in from different categories. Are TPS programs refugee? Is that a refugee program?
Yeah, they were illegal.
Yes, it is.
They were
potentially
potentially
90%.
That's exactly the point I was making. This is the type of immigration program that I agree with you, Tyler, doesn't work very well. There's other programs that
we need
work
to get
better.
rid of it. Yeah,
Biden
we
abuses
don't need to
moral authority. I am not going to defend his immigration policy at all.
I mean, so
Yo,
I guess
Tyler,
to
to
the
your
lefties.
point about,
Go ahead, Castle.
I'll go. I was just going to say, from maybe something we can agree on, is that I think I don't think Trump mentioned it, but I don't think he did anything about it. But one of the things he said was that if you're a Chinese student, you go to American college, you should be living in America for like 5 years before you go back to China or something like that. Like, we need to have people pledging loyalty to the U.S. if they're going to take, advantage of our colleges and universities. So I definitely agree with that. They shouldn't be sending money back over, going straight back to China, and with their engineering degree, building, the next, nuclear reactor there that they needed from here. So
hold on.
Hey,
But hold on. Let me just like play the devil's advocate here real quick for you, Castle. Like, let's use my friend again. He sent money back to Guatemala, right? He was sending money back so that he could get those people here the legal way, right? Wouldn't we be okay with doing that? Like, that seems like something that would be kind of a flaw in your plan. How do you know that they're not sending it so they get more Chinese engineers over here? Like that's the catch-all. Yeah, and then I guess I have one more question for you, lefties. Like, on the right, it seems pretty clear that they have an issue with certain cultures coming and changing it. Are there any cultures that y'all would be like, okay, we don't want that culture coming and taking over America? Or is this something we just want all the cultures here? Like,
hold on. Can I respond to Castle really quick?
Go ahead,
he said
Grid. Then
something
we're going to
really
them.
important there.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Then we can get to your question. So here's the thing, man. It's interesting that when we deal with smart people like the Chinese, when they come over, they have to have a sponsor that can afford to pay for their expenses so that they can't ever get on welfare while they're here. They have to have their tuition prepaid for. They have to have a plane ticket to fly home to be in the country as a student visa, and even on most work visas, they have to have at all times a paid for plane ticket so they can fly home if they have, like the government decides to kick them out or they do something stupid and get drunk at a frat party or some shit like that. But we don't require that of these stupid fuckers.
Well, but hold on, Grid. Hold on.
I got those people on in Moss, and we bankroll them.
But hold on,
so
Grid.
I would actually prefer, and I do agree that we should, if we're going to have an education here, especially if we give them any kind of scholarships or anything like that for them to go to school here. Absolutely, yeah. Let's do that. And
hold on, Grid.
And I've got some good examples of that of people that I've worked with in the past.
Well,
But what my problem here is that's great for smart people like the Chinese and the Indians and the Taiwanese.
Hold on,
Japanese.
You heard it here first, folks.
But hold on,
Chinese
Grid.
people smart.
Hold on. Let me
Why
just.
is it so hard to look at the data?
Well, let me just push back.
I mean, like, just a racist thing.
Hold on. Hold on. We're gonna come back to the lefties in a second. I want to press. I guess the righties here real quick. All right. I use the Guatemalan guy as an example. Right. The average IQ in Guatemala is between 47 and 79. That's low as fuck. Right. But most of them are Catholic. Most of them assimilate when they get here, and then after 2-3 generations, they do exactly like Tyler said. It goes up. Right. That's basically the data I'm seeing on this quick Google AI search. Right. So I mean, now whether or not that's good data, who knows? But I just for funsies, I looked it up. I don't think that most Americans would have a problem with the Guatemalans. Do you have a problem with a Catholic Guatemalan that comes the right way?
But what you said is, hold on.
Okay, fair enough. Rob does. Okay.
Yes, Rob does
I do
for
have
sure.
a problem with it. But what you said, the reason that worked for your friend is because he came here illegally and he worked his ass off at jobs that illegally so that he could pay here. What the government wasn't involved. If the government had been involved, they would have said, "Hey, you have to have all of these other things to be here."
But other legal
And he
immigrants do the same
didn't.
thing.
And
They
so
work.
he was
Hold
able
on,
to
hold on.
shortcut
All
the
other legal
system
immigrants come here and work
and
3 minimum wage jobs too.
guy.
Yeah, but
That's also not all of the. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
guess my thing is like
That was
you
the
keep talking
purpose
about
of
smart
Biden's open
people.
border, illegal immigration. You have illegals; they're harder working. That's what you guys want. You want harder workers in this country. If
Well,
you just
I didn't
open
say
the
I wanted
border,
that.
you get all
I'm
the
just
illegals in.
acknowledging what he said, his example. I understand the difference between his example and what you were talking about. What he's talking about, yes, that does happen. I had a couple of employees who were very much the same who came in. And by the way, I had just, when I was in California and I had the shop there, I have more people who came to my shop wanting a handout and expecting to them blackmail me because they didn't have papers. They were just going to get me to hire them in, and then they would blackmail me because I'd employed an illegal, and they were going to basically ask me for more and more money. We got rid of those guys, but we had just as many bad examples of Latinos from south of the border than I had good examples of Latinos south of the border. So while I will acknowledge that, yes, that does happen. What Gibb said, absolutely, it happens. But it's
but I guess you need
and
bodies.
it's
Is what I'm
great for
arguing.
work.
Like I
Because
guess you need bodies to
I
work
was
minimum wage
smart,
jobs and
and he
other shit.
didn't get welfare, and he didn't,
go ahead.
and the government wasn't paying for it. In my example, where people came over legally, they had to pay their own way. What the problem with these Somalis and some of the others are, we are paying for them. Taxpayers are paying for them, and they're not the best and brightest, and they don't come here and get jobs, and they don't work in the fields, and they don't do any of that shit. 81% of them sit at home and collect welfare checks.
Whoa.
And that
But-
is
Well,
that, bro.
Well, let me hold on.
No, fuck that.
I see Rob.
let's
Let's
be
be
clear.
Rob is American, and you don't have
Welfare does not mean they don't work, right? Grid, you acknowledge that being on what you don't have to work to be on welfare, right?
Hold on. Let's go. Let me go.
Can I answer Gibbs'
I couldn't
question?
understand.
I want to hold on. I see Rob. I want to hear what Rob real quick, and then I want you all to answer my question here. Rob, go ahead. What did you say?
So there's a billion things to talk about here. One, you can see that Coder defaults to racism. To even look at data is just the data must be racist. Are the international human rights groups that measure international data racist when they talk about some countries having people that have lower race IQs than others? Are you accusing them of racism?
Interesting. What?
No. Okay, you're not accused. So therefore, it's not racist.
Wait, no. Well, let me explain what I was calling racist. I think I might be having connection issues, but what I was saying is racist is when he paints Somalis as dumb, like just all dumb. Like that's what Grid was saying. That was racist.
No,
I don't care if it the IQs might be lower. You guys have a lot more value on IQ than I do. I think there's a lot of other factors than just genes, which I didn't know I was on a panel with a bunch of race realists, but I mean, it is what it is.
Hey, you're acting like a real Somali right now.
Yeah, and what it is one of the signs of low IQ is people, when you say, here's something that's true on average about a collective group, and they say, but I know someone that doesn't fit that group. For example, if you say men are usually taller than women, and someone says, but I know a woman that's 6'3". That's what Ryan's doing here. No one is saying that every Somalian is stupid. We're saying that on base, people that come from Somalia have this average IQ, which is one of the lowest IQs in the world. That's true. That's what reputable international
Grid called them dumb. You both called them cousin fuckers.
I
called them cousin
also
fuckers.
see, again, Tyler, what was that data? More than half of Somalians are in
40,
sexual relationships,
48,
marriages.
or the
48.
result.
Okay,
Is that true of the immigrants? Is that true of the immigrants? I'm pretty sure in Minnesota, is it legal to be? Is it legal to marry your cousin in Minnesota?
Well, apparently,
Why
Omar
does it matter? Nobody
a
enforces
brother,
the
and that's
laws
not
on
legal,
the
so it'd
Somalis.
be irrelevant. The point that we're trying to make is we're bringing those people over, right? And those sorts of things lead to not just their cultural preferences, but also lead to IQ deficiencies and health issues, etc., which then end up burdening our health system for their children. Second argument that I want to make to go against what Tyler was saying. I'll start with what Gibb said real quick. Yes, we have a problem with illegal immigrants. I don't care if they're Catholics from Guatemalan or if they're Protestants from the United Kingdom. Any illegal immigrant, someone like me has a problem with. Yes. So to answer your question, Gibbs, yes. Thirdly, am I more accepting for immigrants that match our culture more? Yes, of course. I think that's one thing. But I also want those immigrants to be a net benefit, not, well, if we invest in them for 3 generations, eventually they'll be a benefit to us. And lastly, I'll say, when bringing up this specific question about are they a net benefit, etc., let's look at the actual Somalians we've brought in. The Somalians in Minnesota, everyone agrees with this, is roughly 1% of the population of Minnesota. It's like 75,000 at largest estimates. We all agree with that. According to the Center for Immigration Studies, of all of the children living in poverty in Minnesota, 1 in 8, that's 12.5%, are from Somalian households. They are 1% of the population and 12.5% of children living in poverty. This is not a population that is in net benefiting our country. These are that's why 80% of them are on these welfare systems, because they're in poverty so much beyond what the average Minnesotan is.
They're impoverished, and you're saying this is like a character failure. You're saying this is a bad, like it's bad for anybody to be. I agree, it's bad to be in poverty. It feels bad to be in poverty, but it doesn't mean that it's like blaming, like you're assigning as a moral.
No, the point he's making is that we've created, and by we I mean the country, through the TPS program, has created a population that is set up to fail. They're imported in large numbers. Tyler, we can call it mass or not. It doesn't really matter to me. We import in large numbers, given robust social safety net, and it is not working very well. The data suggests it's just not working that's what I want to ask. Well. So we should have we should end please address the first claim, and then engage with it. Dude, if you talk over me, no one can hear anything. So just wait.
I want to engage with the point, and you would go like 5 different points. So fucking
up. Why?
No, fucking why would you engage with the first point you said? You want to move on?
No one can hear anything now. You're just talking with your popping mic that no one can fucking understand.
You got some kind of setting.
Fix your connection issues. And wait a second. Jesus Christ. Yeah, like literally the entire point is that we should just come up with systems that work better than the one that is obviously failing. And one of the failures that when you have a system that doesn't work like this is lack of assimilation, because assimilation is something that can ameliorate problems like poverty, like lack of employment, like even IQ over time, as Tyler pointed out in the generational stats. So this program is bad. Trump has ending the program. That seems like a good thing.
I don't think that
okay, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna let y'all both go here. Go back to. I want y'all also to answer my question when y'all answer as well. Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't think that like measures of welfare and measures of IQ are like the only things that we can look at when it comes to these communities. But to answer Gibbs' question, are there cultures, whole cultures in which I would say no, you cannot come? Probably not. There are probably aspects of cultures that I would say I wouldn't want in America, and I would say that those aspects of the cultures I would just want to make illegal. So like stoning gay people, I probably would just want that to be illegal in America, so that when those cultures come over here, even though they're
So what happens? But I guess the question is, what happens when they become the majority in the city? They decide, okay,
I don't think there's a huge risk of that happening.
98% of Somalians are massively against homosexuality.
98%. But we have like what?
I disagree with them on that.
80,000 Somalians in here in this country.
Okay.
About 300.
So would you say then?
Minnesota.
Well, hold on. Before we move on to that, Ryan, do you have any cultures that you wouldn't allow to come to the U.S. that you think are just incompatible?
Republicans. No, but seriously, like I think like Liberal Cluck said, right? Like I mean, there are things that I would want to not be allowed, but like I mean, there are like hyper conservative people who want really shitty things, and they're here in America, and some of them are immigrants too, and like I think they're both those policy positions would be bad, but I'm not gonna like say we should have a blanket ban from exlocation or whatever because like a bunch of people believe things I don't like. I mean. Yeah, I can imagine people who I wouldn't want here, but like I don't know that I would do immigration policy based on like just my own like I don't like your values kind of thing. Like I'm not sure that's appropriate.
I think another point to this is like the Somalians are living in like one of the most pro-gay states in the U.S. Like they can leave if they want to. They don't have to stay here. So like the whole point about immigration is assimilating. They're forced to assimilate to a culture that is so much gayer than anything they've ever seen in their lives. They would probably kill themselves if they were in Somalia, but they don't do that here here because they have to live with it and they have to accept it and assimilate to it. So I think you do see a lot more people assimilating to U.S. culture. There are obviously going to be a lot of people that we see on the online or through these articles that don't, and then they get written about and talked about in the news. So I just think a lot of it gets blown up. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying there are people who hate this country who live here, or immigrants, but I really do think it's a way to separate and divide us as a country instead of trying to galvanize us and bring us together, which I think is the better option here.
But again,
I-
this
I-
is so.
I-
This
I-
is.
I-
Go ahead, Chris.
I'm sorry, Ryan. Just give me 1 second here. So I'm going to take a little bit of an issue with that because I don't agree with that. As a matter of fact, it seems to be that they're not only are they not assimilating, they're more and more. We're finding more and more crimes committed by this group of people who's a very in most areas are a very small subculture, right? It's kind of like if the Amish went on a crime spree, it would be very noticeable because there aren't that many of them, right? So interestingly, this very week, actually last week now, but within the last week, here in Nashville, where I live outside of Nashville, but a woman was raped to death on the steps of a church by a Somali man who had 16 fake IDs. We actually don't know his real name. He had 16 fake IDs or real IDs, depending on how you look at it. They still don't know who he is. I believe they're going to use DNA evidence to figure it out. And this is the culture I don't want. And you can't tell me that they're not all like that because they're all Sunni Islam. They all have the same religion. They all come from the same place. They're all
what about that?
You all heard it here.
Wait. What about that Christian white man? What about that Christian white man that raped to death? That raped a woman to death?
Yes,
in,
white people do.
Virginia the other day.
White people do bad stuff too.
But you can't tell me.
Yeah, but you don't
all
hold it against
Christians-
other white people.
You can't tell me that all
It's an
white people
entire
aren't like
culture.
this. You can't tell me that all Christians
say
aren't like
that.
this because they're all Christians.
I can say that
Like,
the
that's-
majority
Yeah,
of
but
Somalis
you
are
did
being
just say that
killed.
about Somalians.
If I could
I
jump
can
in
say
here,
that.
I
Yeah,
would not say
go
that
ahead,
all
Rodriguez.
Somalians would be
Please.
potential rapists. I won't say that. However, what I will say is two things. Twice now we've heard in this debate when we talk about problems in these communities, say, but there are communities in the United States. There's people that are in Appalachia that use welfare. That's true. And we're more willing to accept people that are already native to this country and providing support for them. That doesn't mean that we should be obligated to bring people in that we know are going to be a net drain on the social safety system. That is not what we should be doing. Secondly, although it's true that not all people in this group would be tantamount to being bad, if we only look at our European friends, we can see what happens. Of course, you're right. If we have immigration at low enough numbers, then yes, people are forced to assimilate. However, what we saw with the Biden administration allowing tens of millions of immigrants to come in, including illegals, the vast bulk of them illegals, what happens is as you increase the amount of people from these cultures by the millions, it causes these communities to have lack of assimilation and they sort of ghettoize and balkanize. And what we could see in the UK is people were making the same arguments over there for years that we hear the lefties making here, which is, oh, there's no evidence that these cultures are inferior and there are bad people that are white that do things. Now we see grooming gangs by the scores that are occurring with estimated hundreds of thousands of specifically targeted native British girls by people primarily of Pakistani Muslim origin. The truth is, because people were in that situation afraid of being called racist, because people like Radical Coder here would say, how dare you lump them all together? How dare you say they're all bad? What the price was to feel good about that was hundreds of thousands of British girls being raped. Now we see European countries that were formerly some of the safest countries in the world, like Sweden, have some of the highest rape statistics because they have imported from people these cultures that aren't correct with us culturally and don't assimilate in this ways and have different views on what they think and how they can treat women.
Rob, can I ask you something? You said that the vast majority of the migrants that came in under Biden were illegals. What did you mean by that?
I mean that they were people that didn't come through a green card system or that didn't come here through legalized immigration, student
Sponsorship,
visas, etc.,
legal.
work visas, etc.
So they're like gotaways. They're people who came in and tried to avoid border patrol and tried to live under the radar.
I believe that's a large portion of them, correct?
Okay, you're wrong about that. That's just not true. But anyways, it's the
I can show the data. That's no problem.
I've got some questions because you guys are bringing you guys.
Well,
brought
wait,
up, like, welfare.
You
Yeah,
made a claim. Let
why is it
Rob
not
pull
true?
up his data. You told him that he was wrong.
No, we don't have to wait for it. He can do it while he's talking. Like Rob made like 16 points. Let Liberal Cluck talk for a minute.
Yeah, I get at least 3, right? I do have a question for like the conservatives on the panel who's like, oh, all these Somalians are on welfare. All these Somalians are on welfare. We should probably not let
81%.
we should probably not let the Somalians in because they're on welfare. Would you be more in favor of maybe we let the Somalians in, but we tell them you have X amount of time to be able to be self-sufficient,
No,
or else we're going to deport you?
no.
You don't actually value that thing.
So the welfare doesn't actually matter to you.
Well,
No,
I
once they're
actually,
on the welfare, they're not going to get off. So no, I don't want them here.
There is the
Right.
data. Net immigration from 2001 to 2024. You see the red there under Biden. Those are entries without legal permanent status, i.e., that they entered illegally or overstayed their temporary visa. You see all of the three presidents before him, how even though we saw that immigration itself was lower, they were of those blue groups, which were lawful permanent residents or those that were admitted temporarily for specific work purposes like temporary work visas, student visas, etc. So yes, it is fundamentally true that the vast majority of the people that were coming in under Biden were not in those categories and either overstayed or entered illegally. That is correct.
You're biting
All right,
shit on immigration.
So most people
can I
who
jump in here?
entered under
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tyler.
All right, let me jump in. So the problem is again with just getting the best and the brightest as merit is the best and the brightest come in from H-1B visas. What we see with a lot of these people is they either go back home to have their families, or they send money back to a family they already have in another country and just come here for work. Compassion-based immigration also includes what Trump called chain migration. Is when you come to the United States to work and then become a citizen, you can bring your family over, and that makes you stay long term. And it might not be economically beneficial to bring somebody's stay-at-home wife over here, but in 50 years that investment pays off. And this is only like 5 to 10% of our overall immigration yearly. 90% of it's still merit-based. We're just trying to grow some homegrown.
Again,
You're looking at
again,
this-
just Rob, if you don't mind, just 1 second.
Sure.
The issue here, again, just to be really clear, is the fact that this was a refugee type migration program. That's where these problems are coming from primarily, because it messes with the incentives. When you have individualized migration, you have people coming and they're trying to come into the country, you can ask them questions, you can vet them properly, you can create a community that's going to not have some of these problems. And there are things in Somalian culture that do need to be vetted. I think there's like a 92% female circumcision rate. You need to ask people,
Cannibalism.
like, are you going to keep doing female circumcision when you come over here? We're not okay with that. We're not okay with marrying your first cousin. We're not, or if you naturalize, are you going to vote for Sharia law? Like, these are questions that are worth asking, because, and they're the kind of things you can do in actual immigration programs that work better, but because this was a TPS refugee program, these things are not on the table, and that's a worse system. There are so many ways that these things could normalize and get better over time with a better system, but this system is indefensible.
So would you be okay
And,
with?
well,
Would you
just-
be okay
I agree
with?
with Ryan Mullally, the good Ryan. I agree with the good Ryan.
Would you be okay with a more robust refugee system? We let in more refugees,
No.
but we are wait. Could you let me fucking finish? But you are screening.
It doesn't
for these
matter.
Things.
No, I'm
You
not
are.
okay with the
I know.
refugee
You
system.
just
Okay, you don't have to let him in then,
people here.
Grib.
It's
All right, hold on,
fine.
let him finish, go ahead.
I'm asking
Everybody
Ryan.
should-
That is what Grib said.
He brought up some things that I actually agree with. It's like if you want to screen these people for things that are like illegal in this country, female circumcision, I believe, is illegal in this country. Marrying your cousin is illegal in most states in this country. If you want to screen these people for things
No,
that
it's
you
not.
know are a part of their culture, in order for them to come in, I'd be okay with that. Would you be okay with a more robust refugee system, allowing more people in if we're screening them for these things?
It's
Ryan?
incompatible with a refugee system. The point of a refugee system is that you're bringing people in en masse because of problems within their country, not because they individually are a good fit for this country. What I'm
Okay, but the world
suggesting
you-
is, what I'm suggesting,
but the
what I'm
world you
suggesting is
want
that
is-
Trump is correct to shut down the TPS program from Somalia, and then down the road, if we want to open up immigration to Somalia on an individualized, vetted basis, I would have no problem with that. But that's a very different proposition than what's happening now. And experience teaches. I think earlier you brought up like an asylum app. The asylum app was massively abused. The refugee programs are massively abused. So what we should do is individualized immigration, which is the better system.
All right. On that
Now,
note,
if I could, real quick,
go ahead.
So there's 2 points to make here. I wanted to respond to Tyler with the H-1B thing, but to respond to this first, the other problem is this. We cannot trust our politicians, particularly Democratic politicians. The same Democratic politicians that told us the border was secure in 2021, it was secure in 2022, it was secure in 2023, and then there was a problem in 2024, and it was Trump's fault, right? Now when we see that the totals come out and how many illegals were able to come in here, around 10 million total migrants that came in under the Biden administration in such a short period of time, the vast bulk of those illegal. The problem is when we have systems like this that say, well, what if we had a refugee system, but it wouldn't be abused? What if we did it? The problem is it will be abused.
But okay.
Because, let me steelman your argument. What if we had a refugee system that had robust vetting and we made sure there was robust vetting? Is that what you said?
Yes, that's a better.
Stronger vetting.
I
Yes.
assume that
Yes.
I assume the implication is you would also say you didn't want that system abused, correct?
Well, if we're talking about abuse, yes, I would support putting more
then if
people
I
on
could
the
go on
vetting
with my
process so
So
that
then
it's a
if I
lot
could go
harder
on
to
with my
abuse.
point.
Yes.
So when you interrupted me and said that's
Yeah,
not
but you
what
can't
I said,
do that,
is in
Cluck.
effect what you had said. That is in effect what you said. You said, let's have a robust refugee system that wouldn't be abused. That's fine. I believe that's something you would want. The problem is the people that want mass amounts of migration would allow that system to be abused again, just like they have in the past every time that we've used that system, which is why we need to say no more of these refugee systems, because one, it's a bad idea anyways, and second, because we can't trust our politicians to not sit there and pretend, oh, we didn't know it was mass people were coming in and we couldn't vet people and it was being abused. We just didn't know. We'll tell you 4 years later, now that it's done. That's the problem.
My
So
question
no,
is,
I'm sorry.
so
Our goodwill's being exhausted.
I disagree
Sorry.
with your characterization of the motives of the Democrats for the policies that they. But let's just say I'll give you that just for the sake of argument. No, I want to ask why is it that the Republicans are the complete extreme opposite end? They're trying to get rid of people that are here, that are working, that are doing what they're supposed to be doing, not committing crimes. They are trying to get rid of, instead of trying to make the refugee system robust and less abusable, they're just getting rid of it. Why is that the only other option?
Why do we need to accept refugees?
Wait, Grid, please, if I can. First off,
sorry.
that's not the only thing that Republicans are saying. What the Republicans here are saying are different depending on who you're looking at. Grid's saying things that are slightly different than me. Ryan,
don't characterize us with the Democratic
Tyler's
politicians then. Don't characterize us because we're saying this. We are saying we want a robust. We want a robust refugee system that are vetting.
I literally said, maybe you're having trouble listening. I literally said, I assume you don't want a refugee system that would be fraud. But we can't trust the politicians.
And we can't trust Republicans to do it either.
Let me. Why are you and Ryan incapable of not interrupting people? Why are you incapable of it? I sit
because
here
you like to go
you guys
on with all kinds of different things that we can have.
Hold on. Let him finish. I'll let you go respond, Clark, and then I'm gonna
interrupted
So
a minute ago.
Is, I literally said, I'm not saying that you want this abuse. However, we can see that this abuse occurred under the Democratic politicians, and your response is, how dare you lump us in with the Democratic politician, where I went out of my way to say, I'm not saying that that's what you're advocating for. Now, what I will take umbrage with, and I want to ask you, you said, well, you disagree with the motivations of the Democrats and how they allowed these illegals to come in. What do you think explains the fact that these illegals came in record levels under Joe Biden if this isn't what he wanted? Rank incompetence?
And
go ahead, respond.
hold
on. Right.
Before you answer, let Rob ask another question.
All right, but let Malawi, go ahead and say a question. Then I'm gonna let both of y'all respond, and then we're gonna come. I'm gonna take over from there. We're gonna get to closings. Go ahead, Ryan, Malawi.
I was just going to add to what Rob said, and bring it back to the original topic a little bit. It's kind of like, there's a whole bunch of fraud in Minnesota, and then take our word for it. It's going to be okay, except there was $1 billion of fraud. And then Biden says, this week there was a story that he got a memo that said his soft on immigration policies were going to cause chaos, and he ignored the advice. So There, you brought up earlier, liberal Cluck, that there was an app that was used for asylum. The app was massively abused, despite the fact that Biden was warned that these policies would cause chaos at the border and mass influxes of immigration. So when Rob says it's tough to trust the Democrats on this issue, what he's referring to is that the most charitable explanation for Biden's behavior I can come up with is he just wanted to do the opposite of what Trump did. It's hard for me to understand why he would refuse to follow the advice of his own administration to not let this happen in immigration, but he did it anyway for some reason, and that's the state of play. So that's why it's hard to trust. It's not like Rob's making this shit up.
All right, go ahead, Cluck,
so
and
there was no
either Ryan, y'all are gonna get. I'll get y'all both get a response in here, then we're gonna close it. Go ahead.
What was
Cluck.
your question? What was your question, Rob?
My question was, if it wasn't that this is the result that Biden wanted, what's your explanation? Incompetence?
My explanation was that we just came off of a historic pandemic where the border was completely shut down. People were not only not allowed to cross the border, so they were backlogged in Mexico. There were people that were choosing not to come to America because they didn't want to do it during the pandemic. When Biden comes in,
Wait,
no,
Are you
I
high?
think no. I'm not going to say. I am not going to say that was like all of the influx, but I think that a lot of the influx, a significant amount of the influx, had a lot to do with that.
You know, Cluck,
Biden kept
Cluck,
whatever.
hold on.
Hold on. Biden kept whatever that executive order that Trump put onto the border when he came in. I forgot what it was. It was a COVID era. It expired because the emergency
Revoked
ended.
it day one.
Hold on.
Title 42.
I'm gonna
emergency
turn it
power.
over to Coder. Hold on, we're gonna turn it over to Coder, but
Cluck's talking about. Hold on. Cluck's talking about the emergency power.
No,
Title
hold on. We're
42.
gonna turn it over to Coder, but
Yeah, that's
Cluck,
sounds
I gotta know. Are you high? Because you know the only reason why I started streaming, right, is because my ranch was literally being destroyed by fucking coyotes, and I'm not talking about the animal. I'm talking about fucking illegal aliens using it to escape border treachery. Oh, you know when that was happening? That was happening during COVID. I literally only got into streaming because this was happening in mass during COVID. So I don't want to say you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, at least on this issue. Like, yeah,
So,
because
somebody, I forgot who.
but we're gonna
somebody,
go to the other
who
Coder.
was talking.
We're gonna yes. Go ahead, Coder. Yeah, you get one more word here. Then we're gonna
I
talk.
mean, real quick, do you respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
To what he's saying, I mean, he's saying his like just because there
Oh, yeah,
were
I believe
like
somebody-
illegal immigrants that he was dealing with, like that contradicts your data or something.
Yeah, it contradicts the data.
I'm saying that when we see a mass problem, the worst that we've ever seen with illegal immigrants coming, and Joe Biden bragged about, I'm rescinding Trump's executive orders day one. And then the predictable result is we saw the border crisis get out of control. And I say it seems like this is exactly what Biden wanted, because for 3 years he saw this and did nothing. And in fact, him and almost the entire Democratic Party said, it's not a problem. We don't think that there's a problem here. We don't think there's a problem. And then in year 4, once they realized it was bad for them during an election, all of a sudden they were like, oh, okay, there's a problem, but it's Trump's fault. My question is, seeing as how
Trump
bad
stopped
those
the bill that
numbers
would have
were,
helped,
anyone,
but
anyone with a pair of eyes could see how bad the problem was. Did Biden allow this to occur because he was horribly incompetent, or was it because that this is what he wanted to occur? There could be no third explanation.
All right, go ahead, Coder. Then we're gonna close it.
well, I mean, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I have some clean outline of exactly what caused all these, like a surge in immigration or whatever. I mean, I'm not really interested in that. I want to respond to a few other things that have been said tonight. Like, number one, it's become like kind of a truism that these people are a net drain on our society, which is what I believe GRID, Ryan, and Rob have all asserted multiple times. But I don't think they have any evidence of that. GRID has even argued that 81% of these people are actually not working, which is not what being on welfare means. Right, like most people who are on welfare are employed, often by companies like Amazon and Walmart. So obviously it does not follow that because someone is on welfare, they're unemployed. That doesn't follow at all. Also, Ryan was asserting very strongly earlier that these people are being on welfare. They're not. This is a failing thing. They're like the implication being that they are not at all. Like there's no rate of increase, right? Like the idea that there's no improvement in these communities and people who might start on welfare. Like he's implying that there's there's no improvement to their financial situation. That could be true. I don't think that that's been demonstrated. I don't even think Ryan has seen that data or whatever. I think he's just painting very broadly that it's been a failure, like he did with the Department of Education last time we spoke. I mean, yeah, it's just a few things to kind of poke in. Like all these people will repeat over and over and over. They'll say that. One other thing was no, I mean, I think that's fine. But like, it's all these things you guys keep repeating over and over, and then you move on to a bunch of other topics. Realistically, we came here to talk about specific cases of fraud, which everybody here agreed, I guess, was happening. But you guys want to start talking about Somalian immigration more broadly because of these 77 people or whatever, which is interesting, but not collecting punishment.
If I can real quick, the reason that we went
some of you are at least.
The reason that we went to this is because the guy who's running the show, GIBB, asked us to change to talk about this stuff specifically. That's number one. Second, to talk about Liberal Cluck. Do you see the chart that I have up there, Liberal Cluck?
I do not see you. You mentioned a chart earlier, and I didn't see it in the group chat. I didn't see it on your.
It's literally.
I'm sharing.
Click the watch stream button. Click the watch stream button.
Anyway, while you go look at the chart, we're gonna go to closings.
I got you.
I want to make this point.
Can I ask him about the chart?
So that Cluck could answer this. I just want to be clear. Your argument is if we look from 17 to 20, you see how those numbers under Trump were going down? You see they're sort of low in his first year, then even lower in his second, then even lower in his third, and then you see where they are in the fourth. The fourth year would have included COVID. Your argument is that number would have been way higher in that fourth year, and there's a huge backlog of people that wanted to get in that fourth year, but because they couldn't because of COVID. That's your argument? Why were those people not trying to get in the year?
Hold on.
Real quick, let me
fourth year.
Ask questions.
Just to clarify, why weren't those massive amount of people trying to get in 19, the year before COVID?
Interesting. While you ponder that, we're gonna go to closings. Closings, Tyler, go ahead and kick us off with a closing. Cluck can answer that question when it's his turn here. Go ahead, Tyler, kick us off with your closing and all of any other things.
As always on these GIBB panels, the best points tonight from all six of you started with, as Tyler was saying, so you're welcome. I want to just get to a couple things I didn't get to be able to get to. So if welfare like this existed in the 1800s, the Irish would have been on it, the Polish would have been on it, the Italians would have been on it, and maybe we wouldn't have seen something like the mafia. If you look at the reason why the mafia was formed, it was because of oppression to the Italian people from the powers that be in the United States. They formed their own agencies. It also came from Italy as well, but they had their own agency of policing. That's why they did this. That's also why the Bloods and the Crips essentially were formed as well, as a neighborhood watch. And the Ku Klux Klan was formed as a neighborhood watch against Catholics. It transitioned into racism later. So what we see is somewhat that this welfare is actually stopping this systemic problem of criminals being majority of these people. Now, it doesn't excuse the 70-something that were arrested. So also a very important fact that didn't get brought up tonight that I was really trying to get to is that education is a majorly impaired by lack of nutrition. In the United States, if you're arguing we should not be giving these kids that come over from these bad conditions welfare money, you're just basically saying let's keep their IQ low. We're bringing people that are impoverished, coming from bad societies over, we're feeding them, we're raising their education up, and we already see from the second generation, because we've only been bringing them in since the 90s, the second generation is exceeding the first generation. Not substantially, but it's looking better. Give it one more and they'll even out with the rest of Americans. So I think it has been proven that the first generation of Somalis are as bad as, maybe not what Grid said, but probably more what Rob said. But Ryan, you really opened the door to this litigation when you called Trump racist in your opening. We have to now litigate why this is happening. So at the end of the day, you guys are welcome for all the wonderful points that I gave you that you could bounce off of. And Rob, if you want, I can come on your show tomorrow and finish up a discussion on the actual topic we were trying to do.
Sure.
All right. Thank you so much. Castle.
Yeah, so I think the big thing that we just came out of here that we can all agree on is Tim Walz is innocent. No, but I think the actual debate that happened afterwards.
It was a joke.
I'm kidding. The actual debate that I think was more prudent afterwards was about immigration, which I enjoyed. I didn't really have anything too much to say at the end, just because I wanted to address it in my last points, which I'll do here. But I think I can agree with some of the folks, and like what Ryan was mentioning too, is like what we see in the UK, maybe other countries in Europe, is that I think a solid immigration plan is having people come over here in a steady fashion. And I think when people pour over the border by the millions, like they did under Biden, or whether you put them in certain communities by the hundreds of thousands, that does create a problem. And I think that you have to have that done in more orderly fashion for it to be more successful. And then you get these kind of areas, whether it's in New York City, Miami, Texas, LA, where there are enclaves of people who kind of stick together. They either speak Chinese, they speak Spanish. They don't really start to learn the values of the country. And I think that's definitely happening. That said, I'm still pro immigration, and that the points Tyler made, I agree with 100% that there's still a benefit and there's value of having people come over here and learn the language, learn our customs and values, go to school, get a solid meal so that they can become productive members of society. And I think that's going to greatly benefit us over whatever fraud is happening, right? The fraud is happening. I think we can all agree that it's bad for the country, and the people who commit it should be sent to prison or deported if they're not here legally. So I'm totally for that. But I do think that the amount of money that they either pay in taxes or the jobs they're getting, the kids that they are having, are going to produce so much more value over time than the fraud that they're committing now, that I still see it as a net benefit for the country. So yeah, overall, that's where I would end it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Coder.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, obviously, fraud was happening in Minnesota. I feel like Tyler just assigned, you said that I called Trump racist in my opening. I don't think I did. I don't think I ever said that in my opening statement. I mentioned at one point later on, I talked about his statements about Ilhan Omar, which were pretty disgusting. And I called Grid racist because he was being extremely racist, and Rob was at least vice signaling about racism. So I did say those things, and I still hold to those things.
That was
I think that was happening many times during this debate. I mean, it's all on record. You know, this will all be recorded. It's all obviously on all of our streams. So that's the reality. Yeah, I mean, in terms of like, I think there are problems with immigration. I think there's problems that arise from assimilation. I think it's frustrating that, like, if we want to have these conversations with people like these guys, we can't have like real practical conversations, right? Like if we have a policy like the TPS regarding Somalian immigrants or refugees specifically, like Liberal Cluck starts proposing very reasonable restrictions that he might add in to tighten this, you know, you guys might call it a faucet or whatever, like to kind of like just turn it down just a little bit and like restrict people who might be explicitly problematic. You guys don't want to hear any of that. You guys don't want to talk about any of that. You just want to cut it all off completely. You have no interest in having nuanced conversations about any of these policies, just like you have no interest in talking about any policies that would actually make it harder for people to do fraud in these situations. That's why tonight we didn't talk about any reforms that would actually affect the fraud that was going on. All we talked about was blaming Somalians. We talked about Somali immigration. We talked about alleging it's not collective punishment, and then going on to say this is why we need to cut off immigration from Somalia. This is why Somalians are in that drain. This is why they're dumb and stupid and cousin fuckers, and all this sort of stuff was the conversation you guys wanted to have, which is again, you guys don't actually care about practical solutions, and it shows. Everyone can see it, and it's embarrassing, and I'm ashamed for all of you. But I appreciate.
All right. So we'll go to Mr. Malawi next.
Yeah, I wonder, in the conversations I've had with Evil Ryan, what would it take for something to be deemed a failure? You know, like we did the Department of Education, and no matter what data I suggested, it's funny debate. My debate opponent conceded that the Department of Education had been a disaster in every program that I mentioned, and still Ryan thought that wasn't enough. You know, here we're talking about the TPS program. We've pointed out massive problems in terms of the impact it's having on the population in Minnesota. We've had massive fraud that has shown light on this issue. I'm not sure what it would take for a program to be deemed a failure if nothing that happens on the ground can ever evidence failure. This program has not worked out well. It's okay to admit that. And as is often the case with Trump, there's a lot of bluster and people get caught up in the noise, but then there is a solution that makes sense. The TPS program is creating a perverse incentive. Let's shut down the TPS program. That's not that complicated. And unlike what I believe Liberal Cluck said earlier, it's exactly what happened with Venezuela when we were having trouble with Venezuelan immigration. The truth is, the TPS program is a refugee migration program which limits individualized vetting. It limits the capacity to do the things that make assimilation likely. So you end up with a situation where assimilation doesn't happen with all the downsides that are entailed by that. There are better ways to do these. You don't have to call people racist or get all worked up about it. We can just admit that the program has failed. And then once we admit that, we can talk about other solutions. But it's like, sometimes when I talk to liberals about immigration, it's you can imagine they're outside their house and the hose spigot is busted and water's just pouring onto the street. It's just fucking pouring out. And they're like, and I'm like, your hose spigot's busted. And they're like, let me tell you about my water conservation policy. I'm like, I don't give a shit about your water conservation policy. Your hose spigot's busted and water's pouring out on the street. Your policy doesn't fucking matter. You have to fix the problem first, and then we can talk about sensible solutions.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's go to Grid.
Okay, yeah. So where to even begin in this closing? Well, it's easy, to be honest. Yeah, we shouldn't be letting stupid people into the country. We should not be lowering our collective IQ. If the claim is going to be that we need these people for something, then let's make a good claim, and maybe that can happen. But so far, all I've heard is my feels, and it hurts my feelings that you won't even consider another option. Yes, I actually have a great option. Don't allow anyone in. Because if we don't do that, then we don't have to worry about embezzlement. We don't have to worry about $1 billion being squandered. We don't have to worry about all of these things. It's so easy. It's the easiest thing in the world. But let's just say we want to let some people in. Great. As long as it doesn't cost American taxpayer dollars to do so, bring in whoever qualifies. And you can use a qualification. But not one tax dollar can bring in these people. Not one. My opinion, because American tax dollars get spent on Americans. As a matter of fact, I am such an isolationist, I don't think we should send another dollar to the Ukraine or Israel or anywhere else in the fucking world. Because those tax dollars belong here in America.
All right.
And yeah, that's where we're at. So and Ryan didn't say shit tonight that made any damn sense whatsoever. Except the good Ryan. The good Ryan said a lot of really smart and intelligent things, and you should listen to him.
Thanks. You gotta clarify good or evil.
Can I go next?
Yeah, the evil Ryan. Do not listen to evil Ryan. Evil Ryan is wrong. He's wrong because there's no level that where he will be happy. There just isn't. We literally have cousin fuckers coming in the country, and he's like, "Yeah, that's fine. It's cool. Bring them in. It's fine."
All right,
that's what's wrong.
So, holy shit. Okay. So I think that what we saw in this panel today, that people like Grid, Rob Noor, and Ryan, they said a lot of shit that they expected everyone on the panel to just take as truisms, right? They said that Tim Walz was in on it. Hold on, did I interrupt you when you were saying your stupid ass shit? No, I did not. Anyways, they expected us to take Tim Walz was in on it as a truism based off of a statement that the prosecutor said about something Tim Walz said in 2021, December of 2021, which didn't even actually say the thing that they. And then he's like, we shouldn't be lowering the IQ of the country by bringing these people in. Look at the IQ of Minnesota right now; it's 5th in the country. So I don't really know where that comes from. Shut the fuck. Anyway, and then.
Go ahead, Clark.
And I'm supposed to be answering a question as a part of my. Oh yeah. Do I think that all of the influx of immigration under Biden was due to COVID? No, I do not think all of it was due to COVID. Especially if you're talking about things like visa overstays, which was like historically a thing that has happened. Has been most of the illegal immigrants in America for like all of American history. But when we're talking about like the ones that were crossing the border. Newly under the Biden administration, I do think that a lot of them were due to a good portion of them were due to COVID, making bank conditions worse in the country, making more asylum seekers. That's why the whole Kamala Harris being the border czar thing was a stupid thing to say, because she wasn't the border czar. She was in charge of trying to help make the conditions in these countries better. So we have less people wanting to come in America in the first place and wanting to stay in their country. Obviously, that's a huge ass task that's like nearly impossible to do, but if for one person to do. But yeah, so I do think that. I don't think that the conservatives actually brought much substance to this debate. And a lot of it does seem to be based around these broad stroke, painting these people with like broad strokes. They brought some numbers. 80% is like it has low IQ, but also those metrics are largely irrelevant. And then when I bring up something like, hey, let's disallow them to be on welfare for so long, because they're bringing up the welfare numbers, and they're like, oh no, we don't want to do that either. So it just seems to me like they just don't want brown people here. I don't know. That's just what it feels like to me because of the things that they say.
All right. Well, last but not least, give us some substance to close us out here, Rob.
Sure, I'll try. First, on the broader topic that we were here to talk about, it's ironic. I think everyone on our side of the aisle was clear the entire time. We don't think there's evidence that Tim Walz committed a crime, but there's certainly a lot of smoke there that would warrant an investigation. In fact, by December 17th, he is asked to supply evidence from his communications to the House Oversight Committee. We said that that investigation was something that should occur, right? The fact that we could see that we're constantly told, oh, they said this about Tim Walz. None of us said that, and it's almost like there are two different debates going on, where we keep saying things and then we're told that we said something else totally ridiculous. So yeah, there's all sorts of things we didn't talk about in specific case. Keith Ellison's connections to this, as I got to a little there, seems to be remarkably shady as well. The scale of the fraud is ridiculous. There are credible allegations from insiders that suggest that a lot of this money went to fund terror groups. And I think although it was fine to take it to immigration, one of the ways that I would have liked to discuss this is how these programs being set up through these NGOs in the first place are rife with the ability to commit fraud in general. And it's probably a reason, and it's something I said in my opening statement, that we need to have systems. One, I think we should dramatically limit all of this spending of NGOs. And secondly, they need to be significantly audited, because this sort of stuff, and we saw this with COVID funds galore, the PPP loans, there's estimates that some 15 to 20% of them were obtained fraudulently and ended up making their way out of the country. That's absurd. We're talking about billions upon billions of dollars of our taxpayer dollars that's going to fund possibly terrorism and other bad interest around the world. When it comes to the immigration policy, I mean, I don't know what to say other than we just get to this more racism that you see all the time that's ludicrous. Ryan, the bad Ryan, accused us of not offering solutions that couldn't be further from the truth. We specifically talked about how we wanted these sort of refugee programs to end. The fact that they exist mean that they'll be exploited, and that what would be better, and Ryan, good Ryan, went specifically and said what he would recommend is getting rid of these immigration programs, and then if we need to bring immigrants in from Somalia, doing it in a non-refugee basis, which would allow us to bring the best and the brightest from Somalia. In other words, merit-based immigration. Now, there might be a disagreement between Grid, Ryan, and Tyler and I on how much of that merit-based immigration we would like to see come, or what exactly those merits should be. But nonetheless, that's a far more defensible position than this compassion-based immigration. And you can see it all through this debate, where our opponents, it's like, well, we have to leave these Somalian immigrants in, so let's find a way. What if we tweak this to, where is it that says that we're obligated to let immigrants from any country? Why shouldn't we be choosing the best and brightest? If all of the best immigrants end up coming from countries that aren't Somalia, who gives a shit? The goal of my country is to benefit the citizens of this country. We owe nothing to the people of Somalia or the people that want to immigrate. And that's doubly true when we're talking about this refugee program. And as we bring up statistics of things, what you can see is they're either hand waved away as racist, they're misinterpreted, and they say that we're saying things that we're not actually saying, which is ludicrous. Or you can see, like Liberal Crook, when you're presented with evidence about, like, how do you explain Joe Biden allowing this? He comes up with these inane explanations like, well, the reason is a lot of these came because of COVID, because of backlog of COVID. But I showed you the numbers. Actually, the number of people during the Trump administration while COVID was there increased. The amount of immigrants were increasing even during Trump under COVID. So the idea that just precipitously in the 3 years prior to that under Trump, there was a decline in net immigration or a decline in the total amount of immigration that we saw, but it was about to boom during Trump, during COVID. And so therefore we should use that as some possible explanation for Biden is nonsensical. The truth of the matter is, all of this, when it comes to the abuse that we see through these programs, which sadly we didn't get to talk much about how all of these programs are able to be abused, or it becomes these immigration system, it is America last. We care little about the American people. You can even hear them being belittled. American people are on welfare. American people do this and that. Yes, it's true. There are people in our groups that are in poverty and other things. Saying poverty isn't a moral failing. It's saying that we should not be bringing in people that predictably are going to be in poverty. We should not be bringing in people that predictably are going to have 80% of their households be on some forms of welfare because they're in such poverty. These are not net gains to the country. And that's not to even talk about discussions of the cultural changes that will occur. So it's not a matter of racism. The accusations of racism literally mean nothing to me. At this point, it is the last bastion of people that don't have an argument. And as is usually the case with Radical Coder, that's a device that he will rely on because he knows that he's incapable of arguing the facts of the issue. That's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Ron.
So I
Hey,
don't.
Peace.
hold on. Coming
Can we
up.
stick around if people want to?
Hold on. Let me just do a little housekeeping real quick. Coming on Sunday, folks, we're going to have our semifinals of our debate championship series. We're going to be having Tyler here is going to be debating Fabian Liberty in the semifinals. What was the topic, Tyler?
I feel bad for you, Tyler.
FDA.
Wait, you're
FDA
picking-
regulations, good or bad.
FDA regulations, that's going to be the topic. It's going to be good. It's going to determine who's going to the finals to determine a regular season champion, which there's going to be a cool prize for the winner that they're going to get mailed to them, and I'm pretty excited for them to show it off. And then we're going to be having, starting our Grand Prix after that. It's got some more big announcements. It's real exciting times here. And then next Thursday, we're going to be talking about the Golden Dome and the Golden Fleet and American military rearmament. I'm pretty excited for those going forward. Yeah, I mean, we could do some sort of open. I don't want to hold anybody too much longer. I can go for a little bit, but then I have to go do something. But yeah, we can stay open for a little bit. But if anybody needs to leave, now is your chance. Y'all are welcome to stay all y'all want. But yeah, if you have something you wanted to keep going.
It's a wonderful night, everybody.
It's been real, gents.
Oh,
Ryan, I'll hit you up in a minute. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't understand why, like, you ask us, oh, why should we have these refugees in America, except for, like, it's the right thing to do, right? I don't
Why is it
understand
the right
why.
thing to do? Stop saying it's the right thing to do.
But
Give a
that
justification.
that was the prompt that we were given by.
No, it was not
Gibbs,
the fucking
except
prompt.
for
You keep
it was like
you've
something
renamed
like-
the prompt four
ex-
fucking times. Just tell me why you think it's the right thing to do to have
Well,
people
because
come into
I think
our
that we
country.
were, because I think
Answer
we were very
the fucking
welcome-
question.
I am fucking answering it, you piece of shit. Holy
Dude.
No,
shit!
you're not.
Calm down.
Because I think that we're a very wealthy country who can take care of these people.
No, we're not. We're fucking
yes, we
not.
are.
We can't take care of
We
our own people.
absolutely are. We
Fuck
can.
off
We
with that
don't have the
shit.
political. No, we just don't have the
Republicans just
political
choose not to.
will. We just don't have the political will from people like you to actually take care of our own people.
How many millions and billions of dollars do we have to pump into our system and go into debt to take care of people who don't fucking belong here to begin with?
It's not as much as you think,
Belong
though,
to begin
Greg.
with based on what?
I don't
Yeah.
care how much.
Yeah, I don't know how much of the welfare is actually going to quote unquote people who don't belong here. I have a feeling it's
Yeah.
a
Well,
much
apparently
smaller number than you
81%
think
of
it is.
Somalis are on fucking welfare.
Yeah, but we
Why
only
do you
have like
bring those
100,000
people here?
Somalis here. But we only have like 100,000 Somalis here.
Who cares?
Can I'll try to
So-
answer
It's
so-
this.
100,000
very
Americans that don't get money.
Significantly small amount of
I'll
money for them.
I'll try to answer this respectfully real quick, and then I'm going to head out as well. But I'll say this. I do think that the leaders in the Democratic Party and other people have different motivations when it comes to immigration, but I will not impugn the lefties here. And let's say that legitimately you just want to help people around the world. I think that this is a fundamental difference between me and probably Grid, and I would guess the other two people that were more on the right here, and then those of you on the left. Those of you on the left feel that it is the duty of the United States government to help people around the world. I don't feel that way. I feel that the United States government takes tax dollars from working citizens of this country, and the implicit agreement is it exists to govern first and foremost for the people of this country, not to try to benefit poor people around the world. That is not the responsibility of the U.S. government, especially when we see there are so many people in this country that are still suffering. Some of the greatest of us veterans that served in combat that cannot receive care. Meanwhile, we're prioritizing sending money to Somalians, and then we see billions of dollars of fraud coming through in just one program that we see with these Somalians, and that's just one little issue. Constantly, we're giving money to groups around the world. Constantly, we're bringing in people, in the words of Donald Trump, from shithole countries. It needs to stop. And you think we have an unlimited money supply, but what we see is the wealth gap continues to grow in this country, and we continue to see the debt spiral over and over. And when chickens come home to roost, it'll be the working class people in places like my communities that are dying in Appalachia, who've been here for generations and been forced to pay into this system that no one in our government gives a shit. It'll be us that are on the chopping block. But you
So
all
if
will
we
think
got-
that's okay because it's equally important from helping people in Appalachia as it is to help people like Somalians.
If
I disagree.
we
with
got
Wait,
rid,
hold on, liberal.
if we got rid of,
Hold on, liberal cluck. Hold on.
please.
Let me just get one point in. But Rob, there's this whole instance where I don't know if you remember what the Zadroga Act was, but it was a bill to help folks who were affected by 9/11 dust, and that was something that Jon Stewart tried to get Congress to act on because Republicans wouldn't pass a bill to help them and their families who were affected by that. They got cancer, they were dying. So the Republicans also have instances where they can help
true.
firefighters, people who have died for this country, saving people's lives, and they won't pay for them. We have the money. Jon Stewart, from his behest, forced them to pass it eventually. So it's clear that one party, you're saying that Democrats might not care about this and they care about Somali immigrants more, but we've already seen instances of the Republicans who couldn't give a shit about people who
That's not
saved
true.
people's lives
So
on
the
9/11.
objections to that specific bill were primarily from Rand Paul, and his only holdup wasn't that we shouldn't fund this, was that he wanted to know where the funding was coming from and what the extent of how much we would be paying on this, because his worry was that this money would come from
Who
places
cares
that
how
it
much we would
shouldn't.
pay for it? It's for
Listen,
people who literally served on 9/11 and
the
died.
reason is it's this exact mindset that leads us $39 trillion in debt. Who gives a shit what the final bill will be? The
Nonsense
problem was
about
what he was
9/11
Yeah, we
responders.
should
You
help
notice-
people who serve this
Now,
country,
you-
like
you-
veterans, like
everyone-
firefighters.
To everyone that's
Hold on,
listening,
let him-
to everyone, please let me finish my point. To everyone that's listening that
Okay.
wondered how this Somalian fraud case was able to occur to the tune of $1 billion, now you're seeing the mentality. Because we shouldn't worry about the details. Where does the funding come from? How do we audit it? Things like that. Nope, you're a horrible person if you want those sort of things before you pass a bill. We just need to sign the check because it's the moral thing to do. And hence, how we end up with billions of dollars of fraud in these programs because people like you say, you're a terrible person if you want to work out the details before you vote for it. And that's exactly what's happening here. This is how
That wasn't the
fraud
case,
occurs.
but
That
I,
very-
Okay,
I
Rob,
appreciate
okay, Rob,
that, but that's
okay.
not what happened.
Rob,
That is
can
exactly
I ask you a
what
question? Rob, I got a question. So if we got rid of all of the foreign aid that we send out, if we stopped allowing refugees in here and we kicked out everybody here that you believe should not be here, would the politicians that you vote for support funding more robust welfare systems and more robust education systems and more robust infrastructures that allow Americans to thrive?
I don't know. I probably, most of them probably not, but let me explain. You assume that those sort of things are good and necessary. What we can see oftentimes is when you fund welfare systems too much, it's actually detrimental. I'm okay for a limited social safety net, but to the extent we see in places like LA where you just throw money at problems, what happens is you're actually increasing the amount of people that are homeless. You are increasing the amount of people that are drug addicts because you're throwing so much money. Same's true of education. We're constantly told we need to throw more money at education, but it's not solving the problem. We're spending more and more money, particularly in schools that are struggling in inner cities, and we're not getting positive results. It's not a matter of lack of spending. It's a matter of the culture and the type of education that we're having. Also, this still wouldn't do things to pay down the debt, which is very important. There are other things that we could do with that money, such as using that money to put back in people's pockets through paying less in taxes, particularly the poor and working class, right? That then will be able to spur the economy by having more money that they can make their own decisions with. So yes, I understand understand. If you all want to smear Republicans as, well, we could point to all these evils because here was a program that would have been good and Republicans couldn't fund it. So therefore, we'll smear all Republicans as they don't fund this stuff. Fine, I'll eat that as long as you guys eat inflation. That you're the ones that want to fund everything and therefore inflation's your fault. So when the people can't afford groceries, when the median home buyer
Rob, the
age
debt
now
under
is-
Trump
let me-
has
last-
ballooned.
last-
38
last-
billion in debt.
You go with the ceiling, too.
last comment that I'll make here. So when you see that the average home buyer is now 41 in this country, you guys just say, yes, that's because we want to keep spend and all these social policies.
I don't think the social policies are. I don't think that people on welfare are the ones buying homes. Like, I don't know.
No, you're causing inflation by mass spending.
because you take so
Rob,
much
aren't we
in
spending more
taxes
money
that
now under
people
Trump?
simply cannot afford.
No, it's true. The
That's our
deficit.
castle.
Okay, can you say that about every single president ever?
Okay, but why are we spending? Okay, back in 2016 when the economy was booming, why were we deficit spending if the economy was doing so great? Like, there's
I
no
agree.
reason
It's one
to
of
do
the
that.
one of the criticisms I have of Donald Trump was that he was spending too much, right? That's certainly
Okay.
true before COVID, and it's certainly true during COVID. The problem is Democrats want to spend even more. For example, we could see under COVID, one of the worst things that happened was Trump signing off on these massive spending bills, much of which the money that went out was fraudulent, went to fraudulent things. But Democrats' criticism wasn't Trump spending money. Their criticism was he's not spending more money. That's the
If
criticism.
you well, hold on. We didn't like the deficit under Trump in 2016. In my understanding, ballooned mostly for two things. One was the COVID stimulus, but even before that, it ballooned because of the
2016?
tax his 2016 run. His 2016
It's first term. Gotcha.
His
Yeah,
first term. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm on melatonin. I've been on melatonin since 8:30. But even before that, it was ballooning at a accelerated rate because of the tax cuts.
But
You
that's
said
not
something
really.
that-
But you understand that's not spending, right? I understand
It's
that
not
the way
spending,
that
no.
the way that the CBO spends qualifies this is it says that if you do tax cuts, if you take in less revenues, it counts that as additional spending. My point is though that allowing people to keep more of their money is a good thing, right? Now, having said that, yes, Trump should have cut programs, but he wasn't spending as much. My entire argument is that the mass spending that we see, that yes, both parties contribute to, but if you're going to blame Republicans by saying, well, they wouldn't be for taking all the money we're sending overseas and just reinstituting that in welfare system, therefore they're cruel, I say the fact that you want to do that is leading to the massive debts, which causes inflation. As long as we're
So my
both in
question to
agreement.
you.
The truth is
No,
that
no,
it's
I don't
nuanced.
agree
It's
with that.
nuanced on both sides. That's the truth.
Well, I don't agree with that because during the we can talk about inflation another time, but I'll give you that for now. I ultimately don't agree with that, but my question to you is if we're not taking the money that we are now no longer sending overseas and giving it to welfare programs, how do you propose to help the poor veterans that you spoke of earlier, or the poor people that aren't really spending a whole lot? They aren't paying in taxes. So tax cuts don't help them. How do you propose to help those people?
I think that I am fine having a social welfare system that is temporary and for the people that need it most. For example, my former line of work was working with adults with severe autism and mental retardation and other sort of illnesses. I'm fine having a system that supports those people. However, that doesn't mean that we need to increase spending. We can see that a lot of the programs that are beneficial to those people are abused by able-bodied adults, right? And so you just making it sound like this. Well, if we're not spending this money overseas, we keep the welfare system we have right now and then take that money from overseas and we spend it on top of the welfare system we have now. I don't think that's necessary. I think another thing that's important to do is to make sure that my child and hopefully his children, God willing, that he has children when he's aren't inheriting a country that's in crippling debt because we continue to spend frivolously for all of this dumb shit. So paying down the debt and allowing people to keep more of their hard-earned money are virtues in themselves. I do not think that it's a morally virtuous thing for you to say that you are doing great things by forcing other people to spend their money on it. If you want to spend your own money through charity, so be it. But it doesn't make you a moral person by saying, I demand that we spend these tax dollars in this place. No, I don't think that makes you moral.
Okay, well, I'm not even making like a moral argument.
Hold on. Before you go on, hold on.
I got 2 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can go. I have to leave though, so y'all have fun.
Oh,
y'all are
right.
I gotta jump out.
I have
too.
to go. I have an
It's been
appointment.
fun, guys.
So y'all be
It's
good.
been cool.
I'm gonna raid.
One of your worst showings
hold
by
on.
far, Grid. But thanks for having us, Gibbs.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. My chat, we're gonna be raiding because you know I like it. We're gonna be raiding the hot goth girl. So, guys, enjoy Beck's content. Y'all be good. Everybody else, thank y'all so much for coming. It was
Thanks,
good.
Gibbs.
We'll see y'all soon.
See ya.
Thanks so much for the raid, love.
But yeah, it was cool. I'd recommend. Have you never done your attacks at all?
No. Woo! Wait, I got something for this. Somewhere. I thought I did. Oh my god.